Chapter 1578. In historical records, people in the Central Plains often fought with people in the northern steppe. Wars between countries were always at the crucial juncture of each dynasty. The once powerful Han dynasty was able to establish a great dynasty through war. As for those countries that were slightly weaker, such as the 5 dynasties, the 10 kingdoms, and the Song dynasty, they could only choose to be annihilated under the powerful attacks. However, the Tang dynasty recorded in history books was different. It did not go through a difficult struggle, nor did it pay a bloody price. Instead, it easily defeated the other side. Was it because the Turks were too weak? Obviously not. According to historical records, the Turkic Empire was very powerful. As early as the period of the 16 kingdoms of the 5 barbarians, the Turkic Empire had interfered with the political power of the Central Plains many times and destroyed several powerful countries. North D has never been so prosperous. Looking down on Een Mountain and belittling Xia. The Turkic Empire at the end of the Sui dynasty and the beginning of the Tang dynasty was not weaker than the Xiongnu before the Han dynasty. In fact, it was much stronger. The Tang dynasty's victory over the Eastern Turks was attributed to Li Er's great talent and the Tang dynasty's military strength. That was why it was so easy to defeat the Eastern Turks. Moreover, the Tang dynasty's military genius, Li Jing, was even deified. It was said that he only had 3,000 men to defeat the Eastern Turks. It was possible that Li Jing was able to defeat the Eastern Turks with 3,000 men. However, it was not because of Li Jing's military talent or the Tang dynasty's military strength. Think about it, there were not many records of this unprecedented war in the history books, and there were no records of any large-scale battles between the two sides. The Eastern Turks seemed to have surrendered easily without a fight. This phenomenon was very abnormal. Emperor Wu of the Han dynasty had spent a lot of manpower and money to attack the Xiongnu. The Turks were very likely to be stronger than the Xiongnu. No matter how strong the Tang dynasty was, it could not have defeated the Turks so quickly. But why was the Turks destroyed by the Tang dynasty, which was slightly weaker? Other than the Tang dynasty's commander Li Jing's outstanding military talent, the more important thing was that the Tang dynasty was blessed by the heavens. Heaven's protection sounded very mysterious, but it really did exist. Firstly, the Sui dynasty, with the help of Zhang Sheng, had split the Turks into 2 parts, the Eastern Turks and the Western Turks. Although the Turkic Empire's strength was still there, its internal divisions had already taken shape and were very difficult to resolve. In this context, although the Tang Empire had been beaten into a sorry state by the Turkic Empire in the early days of its founding, the Turkic Empire had not been truly unified. The two sides had either engaged in internal friction or were unable to focus on attacking the Tang dynasty. In addition, in history, when the Tang Empire was preparing to go to war with the Turks suddenly suffered from ice and snow disasters for 2 consecutive years. The history books recorded that in the first year of Zhenguan, heavy snow fell in the country, several feet of flat land, sheep and horses died, people starved. In the second year of Zhenguan, snow fell in midsummer in the country of Jiali. How serious was this disaster? In truth, this was not a disaster limited to the Mongolian grasslands, but a disaster that affected the entire northern hemisphere. The Tang dynasty was also affected. In the second year of Zhenguan, the Yellow River region of China, especially the Hebei region, also suffered from a snow disaster. Even if the Turkic Khaganate went deep into the Tang dynasty to plunder, they would not gain anything. The temperature in the northern hemisphere plummeted, and the severe snow and frost caused a large number of livestock to freeze to death, causing an unprecedented famine. In order to maintain his military strength, Shili Khan had no choice but to forcefully collect military supplies from the various tribes of the grasslands. However, this action caused the resistance of many tribes in the Turkic Empire. After all, the Turkic Empire was no longer united. Thus, it was under this background that Li Er had launched a war against the Turks. The Turkic Empire had long since lost its indomitable fighting power, so this massive war between countries had been fought so quickly and easily. After the destruction of the Eastern Turks, Emperor Taizong of the Tang dynasty issued an edict. Since last year, the tribute has been reduced one after another. There is no need to trouble the generals of Wei and Hua, no need to wait for Jia and Chao. The Chanyu bows his head and passes his arm across the street. From this edict, one could see that after the Tang dynasty sent out its soldiers, it encountered almost no resistance. Many Turkic tribes, in order to survive, surrendered one after another. Li Er could only sigh. There was no need for generals to work, no need for stratagems, and the Eastern Turks had been destroyed. But now, Li Er was planning to start the country war with the Turks 1 year ahead of schedule, making it very difficult to determine the outcome. This was because the Turks at this time were still extremely powerful. At the very least, no one dared to disobey Shili's orders on the steppe. Thus, Li Zishuan was resolutely opposed to sending troops to attack the Turks in 3 months. Your Majesty, this subject believes that attacking the Turks at this time is extremely inappropriate. Within Taiji Palace, Li Zishuan struggled internally for a moment before clasping his hands and solemnly speaking. These words caused an uproar among the officials. All the officials knew that Li Zishuan was a warmonger. Back when the prime minister of the Jianri dynasty had come to the Great Tang to propose marriage, Li Zishuan had directly rebuked him, and Li Zishuan had even threatened to fight. And when the diplomatic mission had visited the Great Tang, not only had Li Zishuan been on guard at every turn, he had even targeted them at every turn. It was clear that he was not afraid of stirring up trouble. This sort of a warmonger, who was tough on foreign affairs, upon hearing that the Great Tang was about to attack the Turks, his first reaction was not to raise both hands in approval, but to oppose. All the officials felt that the sun had risen from the west today. Seated at the head of the table, Li Er frowned and sternly asked, "What's inappropriate about it?" Shili disregarded the Great Tang, disregarded us, and dared to send soldiers to Yanmen Pass. As the ruler of the Great Tang, why can't we return the favor? Those familiar with Li Er knew that Li Er was somewhat angry at this time. This was because Li Zishuan had always been a junior that Li Er valued greatly. But today, Li Zishuan's stance on the war between the Great Tang and the Turks had greatly disappointed Li Er. To think that the talent that he had painstakingly nurtured was a cowardly scoundrel, how could Li Er not be angry? How could he not be pained? Your Majesty. Since the Sui dynasty, when the Turks were divided into the Eastern and Western Turks, the Turks had already been in chaos internally. In addition, there was a snowstorm last year, causing the Turks to lose a lot of food. These are all signs that the Turks' national strength is gradually declining. Meeting Li Er's disappointed gaze, Li Zishuan calmly cupped his hands and said. Li Er indifferently said, "Since that is the case, shouldn't we send troops to destroy Shili now?" Li Zishuan quickly shook his head and said, "That is not the case. Your Majesty, although the Turks have encountered internal strife and natural disasters, Shili's strength has been preserved well, and the national strength is still stronger than our Great Tang. In this official's opinion, since the Eastern Turks' national strength is already declining, why shouldn't our Great Tang wait a little longer?" "Ha! Wait? Then how long do you think we should wait?" Li Er coldly laughed and said in an unfriendly tone. At this moment, the officials in the hall also looked at Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan almost cursed in his heart. Wait until when? Of course, wait until next year. But once he said that, Li Er would definitely get to the bottom of it and ask him why he should wait until next year. Then, would he have to tell old Li that at the end of this month, there would be seasonal abnormalities on the grasslands and snow in midsummer? No one would believe him even if he said that. Your Majesty, this official thinks that it would be best to wait until next year. Under the pressure of everyone's eyes, Li Zishuan finally opened his mouth and replied. At the same time, Li Zishuan's mind was spinning, and he began to think about how to answer Li Er's next question. Next year? Why wait until next year? As expected, after hearing Li Zishuan's answer, Li Er directly asked. Li Zishuan straightened his clothes and cupped his hands with a solemn expression. Your Majesty, the Turks met with a snowstorm last winter, and many cows and sheep froze to death. If another snowstorm occurs on the grasslands this year, the Turks will definitely suffer another heavy blow. At that time, if Shili wants to maintain his current military strength, he will have to ask for food from the other tribes of the grasslands. This will increase the dissatisfaction of the tribes of the grasslands towards Shili, and the internal friction of the Eastern Turks will definitely worsen. At that time, when your Majesty sends troops to attack the grasslands, you will easily defeat Xieli. After Li Zishuan finished speaking, the officials all opened their mouths in shock. They did not expect that Li Zishuan's reason to persuade Li Er to stop fighting would be so childish. Yes, childish. Below the hall, Qiu Xinggong coldly laughed and said, "Humph. Marquis Yong, and the premise of all your assumptions is that there will be another snowstorm in the grasslands this year, but who can guarantee that it will snow this year? War is not a game. How can you make the emperor postpone the country war plan based on your guess?" What a joke. Qiu Xinggong did not take Li Zishuan's words seriously, but Li Er, Zhang Sun Wuji, and Fang Xuanling's expressions all changed at this moment. Others might not know, but they knew that Li Zishuan had predicted a locust plague last year, and in the 6th month of this year, the locust plague came as scheduled, completely proving how accurate Li Zishuan's prediction was. Now that Li Zishuan said, if another snowstorm occurs on the grasslands this year, it instantly alarmed the sensitive nerves of Li Er, Fang Xianling, and Zhang Sun Wuji. Was this a casual remark, or a prediction of the situation of the grasslands this winter? Li Er, Zhang Sun Wuji, and Fang Xianling all had this question in their hearts at the same time. After Qiu Xinggong finished speaking, he thought that Li Er would quickly praise his point of view, but he stood there and waited for a long time, and did not hear Li Er's voice, which made his heart sink gradually. The civil and military officials in the imperial court also felt that the atmosphere in the hall was not right, so they all lowered their heads and did not say a word. After keeping silent for a long time, Li Er finally opened his mouth and said, "This matter can be discussed later. I am not feeling well and am a little tired. Today's morning court will end for now." Court dismissed. Li Zishuan, stay behind. After saying that, Li Er did not give the officials a chance to greet him, and directly stood up and walked towards the back of the hall. "Xiao Xian, you must be careful, in front of His Majesty, you must think thrice before you speak." Seeing that Li Er had left, the officials all left the court. Before Li Jing left, he looked at Li Zishuan and reminded him softly. "Yes. Uncle Li." Feeling Li Jing's goodwill, Li Zishuan nodded slightly and responded, then he walked towards the direction of the Sweet Dew Hall alone. Chapter 1579. Your Majesty, it is an indisputable fact that the Turks are at their peak. There is no need for the Great Tang to choose to knock against the hard rock that is the Turks. Only by preserving its strength and eliminating the Turks with minimal losses can the Great Tang become truly invincible. In Ganlu Palace, Li Er was frowning in thought. Li Zishuan had been waiting for a long time, but seeing no response from Li Er, he finally couldn't help but break the silence. Li Er finally raised his head, his unfocused eyes focused. He stared at Li Zishuan and slowly said, "We understand the strength of the Turks better than anyone else. Ever since we ascended the throne, the spies we sent into the steppe have never stopped. We admit that the current strength of the Turkic army is truly 30% greater than that of my Great Tang, but yesterday, we issued a decree for the 6 bureaus of the imperial court to prepare for war. 3 months later, an army of 300,000 soldiers will be dispatched from Cheng and to the steppe. We are the sovereign of a country, so how can we go back on our word? You said that at the end of the 7th month, the Turks would have a frost in midsummer. Although this matter is absurd, we believe you. But even so, what can we do? Since ancient times, a sovereign has never joked. Do you want us to go back on our word and lose all our prestige? When that time comes, the Great Tang will definitely fall into chaos." Li Zishuan frowned and fell silent. Li Er's words were completely sincere. The problem now was not that Li Zishuan didn't believe him, but that the imperial decree to mobilize the Turks had already been issued. No matter how reasonable Li Zishuan's words were, Li Er couldn't possibly change his mind, right? If all the officials in the court believed that the Turks would have a frost in the 7th month, then things would be much easier. At that time, even if Li Er wasn't willing to withdraw the imperial decree, the officials would still force him to do so. But the problem was that the officials couldn't just rely on Li Zishuan's one-sided words to believe in something as absurd as midsummer frost. Thus, Li Er was truly caught between a rock and a hard place. "Your Majesty, this subject believes that the lives of the great Tang's sons are the most important. If we can delay the attack on the Turks for a year, not only will our chances of victory be greater, our casualties will also be much lower. In comparison, this subject believes that the sovereign's words can also be taken lightly. After a long while, Li Zishuan once more spoke. At this stage, do you still think that we are a tyrannical and fatuous sovereign who would rather push countless great Tang into the abyss of death for the sake of face? Li Zishuan understood the hidden meaning in Li Zishuan's words. He slammed the table and stood up, his face full of anger. There is no turning back for an arrow that has been shot. He wanted to change direction, but there was no point for him to use. He could only continue flying in the direction of the man in the bamboo hat. Die. This word floated out of the wide bamboo hat. Then, the man in the bamboo hat stretched out his left palm and viciously slapped Wu San's chest. Wu San, be careful. Li Qingxian was the closest to the man in the bamboo hat and was the first to sense the man's actions. He hurriedly warned him loudly. But how fast was the man in the bamboo hat? By the time Li Qingxian finished speaking, that wide palm had already firmly imprinted itself on Wu San's chest. Pfft! Wu San spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was like a kite with a broken string as he rapidly fell down. The fresh blood that was floating in the air reflected the morning sun, making it look very sorrowful. Protect the crown prince. Protect the princess. Quickly call for reinforcements. This was the death cry that Wu San used all his strength to let out before he landed. More than 10 Eastern Palace guards immediately swarmed in front of Tranquil with their swords in hand. In addition, another guard rushed out of the crowd and ran to report the news. You overestimate yourselves. The man in the bamboo hat snorted coldly. Then, he used the tip of his foot to pick up a wooden stick on the ground. It was probably scattered by the roadside stall during the chaos earlier. Then, the man in the bamboo hat held the wooden stick in his hand and directly rushed forward. Without any movement, the 10 Eastern Palace guards were all swept to the ground by the wooden stick. After knocking down all the Eastern Palace guards, the man in the bamboo hat retreated back to Li Qingxian's side. All of this happened in a flash. From start to finish, it was probably only a few blinks of an eye, and all the Eastern Palace guards were down. This was the absolute difference in strength. And Li Qingxian wanted to take advantage of the time when the man in the bamboo hat attacked, but he couldn't escape because the time interval was too short. It's the Crown Prince. Someone wants to kidnap the Crown Prince. Shi City was originally a bustling place. The commotion caused by the Black Yak earlier had caused many people to flee, but there were still some brave people who didn't go far. At this time, when they saw the situation on Li Qingxian's side, they couldn't help but exclaim. Then, the surrounding commoners all reacted and surrounded the carriage. I advise you not to meddle in other people's business. The man in the bamboo hat, who was walking towards Tranquil, suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked at the crowd that was gradually coming closer. After that, he flashed in front of Tranquil. Tranquil didn't even have time to react before she was grabbed by the man in the bamboo hat. Let go of me. Let go of me. You heinous villain, how dare you commit murder in Jianghu city? My father won't let you off. With her shoulder grabbed, Tranquil wanted to struggle but found that she couldn't exert any strength. The little girl protested loudly in fear and anger. Humph. Both of you, brother and sister, come with this poor monk. The man in the bamboo hat snorted softly and then prepared to leave with Li Qingxian and Tranquil. But things didn't go as he wished. Let go of the crown prince and princess. The man in the bamboo hat suddenly felt his legs sink. He looked down and saw a man covered in blood hugging his legs. Chapter 1582. Humph. You want to die? Then I'll fulfill your wish. On the main street of the West Market, the bamboo hat man was enraged when the leader of the Eastern Palace Guards, Wuxian, hugged his legs. He snorted coldly and circulated his qi to his legs. A powerful surge of Jinqi suddenly erupted, causing Wuxian to spit out a mouthful of blood. Pfft! Help me! Quick, help me! Wuxian felt a surge in his chest. At this moment, he felt as if his internal organs were about to shift. However, his powerful will allowed Wuxian to hold on tightly to the bamboo hat man's legs. He used all of his strength to shout to the other soldiers around him. Go! Protect His Highness! The dozen or so Eastern Palace guards who had fallen to the ground stood up again and ran toward the man in the bamboo hat with all their might. Seeing this, the man in the bamboo hat panicked. He channeled true qi into his legs again and released it, trying to shake Wuxian off completely. Pfft! Pfft! This time, Wuxian spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. The joints in his arms were completely broken, and he was sent flying far away. It was not that he did not want to continue holding on to the man in the bamboo hat, but his arms were completely powerless now. Wuxian! Commander Wu! Li Qingxian and the group of Eastern Palace guards were all shocked. Wuxian was clearly heavily injured and looked like he was about to die. Who knew that the man in the bamboo hat would not give up? He took 2 steps forward like lightning and kicked Wuxian in the abdomen. Wuxian was instantly kicked into the air and smashed into the Eastern Palace guards who were rushing over. Humph. You overestimate yourself. After breaking free of Wuxian's restraints, the man in the bamboo hat snorted coldly. Then, like an eagle catching chicks, he picked up Li Qingxian and Tranquil and prepared to leave. But, bam! Protect His Highness! Protect Her Highness! Just as the man in the bamboo hat was about to leave and the Eastern Palace guards were smashed to the ground, a burly man in coarse clothes suddenly slid toward the man in the bamboo hat. When he slid to the feet of the man in the bamboo hat, the burly man did not hesitate to imitate Wuxian and hugged the man in the bamboo hat's legs tightly. After witnessing that brief exchange with the burly man on the ground as a demonstration, the surrounding commoners all followed suit and swarmed toward the man in the bamboo hat. Even if they knew that they were no match for the man in martial arts, what could they do? This was the capital, under the emperor's feet. Kidnapping the crown prince and princess right under the emperor's nose, how was that just lawless? This was simply treason. The Tangs worshipped martial arts, especially the people of Jianghu. Their customs were more valiant than those of other places. Someone wanted to kidnap the crown prince and the princess right under the emperor's nose. As Tangs under the emperor's nose, they would not allow such a thing to happen. His Highness! His Highness! His Highness! His Highness! After a while, dozens of people from Jianghu city surrounded the man. They not only surrounded him but also hugged his legs tightly. The reason why the citizens were so fearless was that the Li Tang royal family had won the hearts of the people. Li Qingxian had also done a lot of good deeds before, so the citizens had a very good impression of Li Qingxian. But now that the man in the bamboo hat wanted to capture their crown prince, these citizens would definitely not agree. You're all courting death. The man in the bamboo hat was furious, especially when he felt the ground tremble slightly and knew that it was very likely that the patrolling Marquis of Jianghu was about to rush over. His heart was filled with rage and panic. With an angry snort, many of the people around him were sent flying or vomited blood from the shock. The crown prince and princess are under attack in Shi City. Soldiers in the city, go to support them. The crown prince and princess are under attack in Shi City. Soldiers in the city, go to support them. On the Vermilion Bird Avenue, Li Zishuan and Xian Qing were chatting as they walked. Suddenly, a soldier appeared in their field of vision, and that soldier was running while panting. What? Qingqian and Tranquil were under attack? Hearing that, Li Zishuan and Xian Qing looked at each other and were shocked. He hurriedly urged Big White to come in front of the soldier and asked anxiously, "You said the crown prince and princess were under attack. Who attacked them? How are the crown prince and princess now?" Marquis Yong then. The soldier looked up and saw that the person who asked was Li Zishuan. He immediately became excited and grabbed Li Zishuan's arm, saying excitedly, "Marquis! Quickly go to Shi City and save the crown prince and princess. There is a thief wearing a bamboo hat and is extremely skilled in martial arts who wants to do something bad." Li Zishuan took back the academy's information from Wu Jia at the Longmen Pass and became famous in the world. Now, who did not know that Li Zishuan could fight a great grandmaster alone? Therefore, after seeing Li Zishuan, the soldier who sent the message felt like he had seen his savior. Shi City. Extremely skilled in martial arts. Li Zishuan's eyes narrowed. Without any hesitation, he turned his horse around and said to Xian Qing, "Young Uncle Master, I will go save the crown prince and princess. You go back to Yunshan first." Then, without waiting for Xian Qing's reply, he kicked Big White's stomach and rushed to the west side of the city with his horse. "Little Xian. Uncle Master will go with you." Xian Qing quickly made a decision and chased after Li Zishuan's back. He was not interested in fighting and killing at all. However, since the Celestial Master's sect of Longhu Mountain had chosen to enter the world, now that he knew something had happened to Li Qingqian, he had to help. Seeing that, the soldier who sent the message could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. He knew that with the help of the two masters, Li Zishuan and Xian Qing, it was basically settled. Even if the man in the bamboo hat was skilled in martial arts, he would definitely not be a match for Li Zishuan and Xian Qing. Chapter 1583. Clang. Just as the man in the bamboo hat was about to hit Changle's head with his right palm, a loud and clear sound of a sword suddenly came from the street of Shi Market. The man in the bamboo hat instantly felt a sense of extreme danger. If this palm hit, Changle would undoubtedly die, but he would also be seriously injured by this sword. Humph. Of course, the man in the bamboo hat didn't want to die like this. He snorted coldly and directly turned his palm into a claw. He directly grabbed Changle's right shoulder and pulled her in front of him. He wanted to use Changle to block this sudden and peerless sword. "You're courting death." This sword was the fifth move of the 9 Taishian swords, leaving dust, which was used by Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan rode all the way to the entrance of Shi Market. As soon as he arrived, he saw that the man in the bamboo hat was about to hit Changle's head with his palm. Li Zishuan was so shocked and angry that he directly used the fastest move of the 9 Taishian swords to save Changle. However, the man in the bamboo hat's reaction was both unexpected and reasonable. In order to avoid hurting Changle, Li Zishuan could only forcibly change the direction of the sword to avoid the man in the bamboo hat and Changle. However, the man in the bamboo hat's action had also thoroughly angered Li Zishuan. Today's matter was destined to be irreconcilable. Grand Master late stage. The man in the bamboo hat, who had dodged a bullet, couldn't help but feel a little surprised when he felt the momentum from Li Zishuan. He had never expected to meet a master at the Grand Master late stage here, let alone a teenager of 15 or 16 years old. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something and couldn't help but say in a low voice, "You're Li Zishuan." In the whole world, Li Zishuan was probably the only person who could reach such a high level of martial arts at such a young age. Changle, who had thought that she was doomed, closed her eyes and waited for her death. However, after waiting for a long time, the bamboo hat man's palm did not land. Instead, she heard the words, "Li Zishuan." She hurriedly opened her eyes and saw Li Zishuan brushing past her with the wind-chasing sword in hand. At this moment, Tranquil couldn't help but feel a little dazed. When she was at her most dangerous and desperate moment, the man she respected and admired the most finally appeared. Was this fate, or was it a coincidence? Humph. How could a grandmaster commit such a despicable act? He really deserves to die. Just when the man in the bamboo hat was shocked by Li Zishuan's arrival, a cold snort came from his left. Then he felt a sharp light locking onto him. The fifth sword of the 9 Taishian swords, leaving dust, a sword leaving dust and desolation. A handsome man in a Daoist robe, holding a long sword, was stabbing towards him at an even faster speed. Powerful. Chapter 1586. Plot. What kind of plot does the Heavenly Dragon sect have in Chang'an? In the Sweet Dew Hall, the moment Zhang Sun Wuji finished speaking, Li Er, who was seated at the head seat, could not help but frown. The Heavenly Dragon sect is plotting something. The capital might be in danger. This was the first sentence in Li Junxian's letter. From this, one could see that Li Junxian believed that the most important matter for the imperial court was to investigate the Heavenly Dragon sect's plot and resolve it. But the problem lay in what the Heavenly Dragon sect's plot was. It wasn't written in the letter, and no one knew about it, much less resolve it. Thus, the 3 old officials and Li Zishuan all frowned as they tried to figure out what the Heavenly Dragon sect's secret plan was. After a long while, Fang Xianling stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, this old subject believes that the Heavenly Dragon sect's plot is to allow them to succeed tomorrow. They might have tens of thousands of soldiers outside the city and hundreds of spies inside the city. When the time comes, they might really be able to break through the gates of Chang'an. Thus, this old subject believes that although we don't know what the Heavenly Dragon sect's plot is, the imperial court must prepare a response in advance. We must prevent the Heavenly Dragon sect from dividing Chang'an from within." Hearing this, Li Jing nodded secretly. It was obvious that he approved of old Fang's words. Li Er thought for a few moments before turning to Li Zishuan and asking, "Marquis Yong'an, what do you think?" "It's here again. Di Renjie's classic line is here again." Even though this was an extremely solemn occasion, Li Zishuan couldn't help but grumble in his mind when he heard Li Er ask, "What do you think?" But grumbling was grumbling, the problem still had to be solved. "Your Majesty, this subject agrees with Fang Xuanling's words." Li Zishuan, who was well versed in emotional quotient, first affirmed old Fang's analysis. Then, in order to avoid disappointing Li Er, he began to speak of his own opinion. General Li didn't mention anything about the Heavenly Dragon sect's plot in Chang'an, so he probably doesn't know either. This meant that this plot was the Heavenly Dragon sect's top secret. However, I believe that other than planting spies in Chang'an city, there is also a possibility that the Dragon sect is using the followers that the Dragon sect had previously developed in Chang'an city to plot something that would cause the imperial court to lose its prestige and His Majesty to lose face. By belittling the imperial court and praising themselves, not only would they be able to easily conquer Chang'an city, but they would also be able to quickly win the hearts of the people after conquering Chang'an city and then control the entire world. Today, the Crown Prince and Princess Tranquil were nearly robbed in the Western market. It is very likely that this was done by members of the Heavenly Dragon sect. They wanted to kidnap the Crown Prince and Princess Tranquil to threaten His Imperial Majesty and even strike at His Imperial Majesty's prestige. What? Marquis Yong'an, you're saying that the assassinations in Qingxian and Chang'e today were done by the Heavenly Dragon sect? Hearing Li Zishuan's last sentence, Li Eru's eyes narrowed and his face suddenly turned cold. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, Your Imperial Majesty, what this subject has said is only a conjecture. It is a reasonable conjecture based on the evidence that we currently possess. Previously, when the assassin escaped from the Western market, this subject's martial uncle immediately pursued the assassin. However, in the end, he was unable to catch up. However, according to martial uncle, the assassin's martial arts originated from the Buddhist sect. Perhaps it is related to Buddhism. In addition, that assassin had many accomplices in Chang'an city. If not for those accomplices, the assassin would not have been able to escape from martial uncle's eyes. Buddhist sect. Accomplices. Hearing this, Li Eru's eyes flickered. After pondering for a moment, he looked at Li Zishuan and asked, You mean to say that the assassin could be the Heavenly Dragon sect's Shakyamuni Du-yi? Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, This subject has just returned from the north. Previously, this subject has not met the Venerable Du-yi of the Heavenly Dragon sect. However, this subject has heard of Du-yi. This person originated from the Tantric sect of the Western regions. Not only is he proficient in martial arts, he is also proficient in magic. Today, this subject believes that Shakyamuni Du-yi is a major suspect in the assassination of the Crown Prince and Princess Chang'e in the Western market. Not only is he a suspect, he also has sufficient motive. This is because as long as either the Crown Prince or Princess Chang'e fall into his hands, when the Heavenly Dragon sect rises tomorrow, they will have the capital to threaten the court and your Imperial Majesty. At the same time, they will be able to strike a blow at the court's prestige among the common people. Bang! Humph! What a Heavenly Dragon sect! Truly preposterous. Li Eru had originally suspected the Heavenly Dragon sect, but that was only a suspicion. There was no evidence, nor was there any logical reasoning. Now, after hearing Li Zishuan's logical analysis, Li Eru slapped the table, unable to restrain his anger. Li Zishuan hurriedly said, Your Imperial Majesty, please calm your anger. In reality, this is only this subject's conjecture. There is no sufficient evidence to prove that Shakyamuni Du-yi is at that moment. In addition, even if Shakyamuni Du-yi is the assassin, he is currently hiding in the shadows. It will be very difficult for your Imperial Majesty to dispatch people to find him. Chapter 1588. How are the preparations on Venerable Du-yi's side? In a secret chamber on Snake Spirit Mountain, the dragon head of the dragon sect stood with his hands behind his back. He was still wearing his iron mask. Reporting to Dragon Head, the Venerable sent a message through a pigeon saying that the deployment in Chang'an city has been completed. Once the auspicious hour arrives tomorrow, the Venerable will give Li Shimin a big surprise. At that time, our sect members in Chang'an city will lead the rioting Chang'an citizens to attack together. Chang'an city will fall in the blink of an eye. Standing behind the dragon head was Zhang Liang, the fingered judge of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Hearing the iron-masked man's question, Zhang Liang hurriedly cupped his hands respectfully. Good. The iron-masked man laughed, then turned to look at Zhang Liang and asked, How are the preparations on General Luo's side? Zhang Liang bowed slightly and replied, Dragon Chief, General Luo has already transferred 30,000 people who are loyal to the Dragon sect into the Heavenly Dragon army. When we attack the city tomorrow, these 30,000 people will be the vanguard while the 20,000 main force of the Dragon sect will support them from the side. Once the city gates of Chang'an city are opened from the inside, the 20,000 elites will immediately charge into the city and lead the followers into the imperial city. Good. 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 The iron-masked man cheered loudly. It was obvious that he was extremely excited at this moment. He then smiled and said, now everything is ready except for the east wind. Tomorrow, when the weather changes and thunder rolls, it will be the day when the dragon sect ascends to the top of this world. Zhang Liang congratulates the dragon head on obtaining the dragon throne. Zhang Liang bowed with an excited expression. The iron-masked man walked to Zhang Liang and patted him on the shoulder, saying, "Ah. After this is done, this seat will not forget your contributions. Dui will become the national preceptor of the Great Tang, and you, Zhang Liang, will become the right servant of the Great Tang." The right servant of the Great Tang was the Prime Minister, the head of the civil officials. However, the Great Tang abolished the position of Prime Minister and changed it to the left and right servant of the Great Tang. Zhang Liang's breathing quickened when he heard this. He quickly knelt on the ground and cupped his hands to the iron-masked man, saying, "Subordinate Zhang Liang is willing to die for the dragon head and help the dragon head accomplish your great cause. Ha ha ha. My beloved minister, please rise." The iron-masked man nodded. He knew better than anyone else that the closer they were to success, the more unstable their hearts would be, and the easier it would be for them to make mistakes. In order to avoid any accidents, he could only draw a grand blueprint and a beautiful future for his subordinates, letting them work together for his goal. In the end, these were just some methods to win over people's hearts. It couldn't be said to be brilliant, but at this time, it was extremely useful. Zhang Liang's current performance was the best proof. I heard that Li Junjian performed very well in the Earth Emanations group. Is that true? After a moment of silence, the iron-masked man suddenly asked. It was said that not long after Li Junxian had joined the Heavenly Dragon sect, the Dragon Head had made an exception and promoted him to the Earth Fiend group due to his outstanding performance. The other ordinary members of the Heavenly Dragon sect were all envious of him. Zhang Liang's face instantly turned unnatural. The iron-masked man had ordered his finger cut off precisely because Li Junxian, had brought back the Heavenly Dragon sect's account books, causing others to privately call him the finger-chopping judge. Thus, Zhang Liang had always harbored a grudge against Li Junjian. But the iron-masked man clearly admired Li Junjian. How could Zhang Liang, with his normal emotional intelligence, choose to speak ill of Li Junjian at a time like this? Fortunately, he was bent over and had his head lowered. The iron-masked man looked down from above and couldn't see his expression. Otherwise, the iron-masked man would have been able to see through his thoughts. Replying to the dragon head, your subordinate has also heard that Li Junjian has been diligent in his training in the Earth Fiend group and has never been lazy. He has always been one of the best in all the examinations, and even General Luo has praised him. He truly is a good seedling. Your subordinate truly admires the dragon head's discerning eye for talent. Zhang Liang raised his head, the unnatural expression on his face gone, replaced by sincerity and admiration. Haha. Good. The dragon sect should have more brave and fearless youths like Li Junjian. The iron-masked man laughed loudly, pausing for a moment before giving another order. Since the deployment in Chang'an City has been completed, let Dui return to the Snake Spirit Mountain quickly. When the army attacks the city tomorrow, we still need him to boost the morale of the dragon sect members. Zhang Liang nodded and replied, "Yes, Dragon Head." Zhang Liang turned and left, while the iron-masked man turned and sat on the tiger skin couch, fantasizing that after tomorrow, he would rule the world, and Li Shimin would become his prisoner. The iron-masked man could not help but let out a burst of wild laughter. He, Li Shimin, tomorrow, I will make you pay for this blood debt with blood. He. For a moment, the room was filled with the iron-masked man's sinister laughter. He. In the valley to the north of the Snake Spirit Mountain, countless burly men in black held Modeo and hacked at the wooden stakes in front of them again and again. Sweat rolled down their foreheads, but no one dared to wipe it off. Their clothes were already drenched in sweat. This was an elite force of disciplined soldiers. Li Junxian was among them, and at his level of martial arts, this sort of training was naturally easy and casual for him. But he was a member of the Heavenly Dragon sect, and his public identity was that of a hunter. He naturally didn't dare to reveal all his martial arts, so he could only act like the others, using all his strength to wield the Mo saber. I finally heard that the Marquis of Yong, and had returned to Chang'an, but I'm now in prison. I wonder if that little girl delivered my letter to the Marquis of Yong, and I wonder if the Marquis of Yong will be able to investigate the dragon sex scheme in Chang'an. Li Junxian thought to himself as he continued to wield the modeo and pretend that it was very strenuous for him. One could say that he was doing 3 things at once. Right now, he had no place to use his martial prowess. He could only place his hopes on that little girl who had accidentally come to the base of the Snake Spirit Mountain to pick herbs. Little girl. Who told you to come here to pick herbs? What's wrong? I can't pick herbs here. I see that there are many herbs here that can be sold for a lot of money. Wow. There's a Lingji up there. Wow. I'm rich. I'm rich. Oh, it's too high. I can't climb up. Big brother, can you help me pick the Lingji up? Little girl, there are many bandits on this mountain. If you still want to live, you should leave as soon as possible. Oh. But this Lingji can be sold for a lot of money. With this money, I can buy my little sister a portion of the chicken from the Drunken Immortal restaurant. Little girl, I'm afraid that you won't have the life to spend some money. I don't care. Isn't it because the bandits didn't notice me? Big brother, I beg of you, please help me pick that stalk. Little girl, you really want money more than your life. I can help you, but you have to help me deliver a letter to Chang'an. Okay. I've come to Chang'an to participate in the Yanhuang College's entrance examination. I'm very familiar with this place, so I'll definitely be able to deliver the letter. Li Junxian couldn't help but bitterly smile as he recalled the scene from this morning. How could he have so easily trusted a little girl that he had never met? If he didn't deliver the letter, he would have to die 10,000 times. Marquis, what do you think, should we just forget about it? These incense sticks were all transported from the Great Xingshan Temple, so there shouldn't be any problems. After all, we were there with them. Outer Imperial City, Imperial Ancestral Temple. The old eunuch couldn't help but reveal a difficult expression after hearing Xiao An's words. He turned around and clasped his hands toward Li Zishuan. Big brother little Xian. Changle's voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing. She tugged on Li Zishuan's sleeves, indicating that Li Zishuan shouldn't clash with the old eunuch. Li Zishuan's eyes narrowed. It seems like this old eunuch's status in the palace isn't low. Even Changle had to give him some face. After weighing the pros and cons, Li Zishuan chose to take a step back for now. Since Stewardin can vouch for me, this marquis can be at ease. Chang'an City has been very chaotic recently, so this marquis was a little suspicious. Stewardin, please don't take it to heart. I wouldn't dare. The old eunuch's eyes narrowed into slits, and he smiled like a Maitreya Buddha. The Marquis of Yong is wholeheartedly devoted to the country. He is loyal to the emperor, and his spirit is commendable. I only have admiration and respect for you. I will never, nor will I dare to, blame you for anything. Fine. If that's the case, then this marquis will take his leave. Li Zishuan nodded and said lightly. Then, he left with Changle. Suddenly, he felt as if his eyes were blinded by something. Looking in the direction of the light, Li Zishuan could only see that the young eunuch had his hands tucked into his sleeves. On such a hot day, it was very strange. Li Zishuan pretended not to see it, and quietly walked towards the Vermilion Bird Gate with Changle. Brother Xiao Xian, don't you want to know Steward An's identity? After walking a distance, Changle couldn't help but ask. Li Zishuan nodded and said, I want to. Then why don't you ask me? I'm the most familiar with the matters in the palace. Changle said doubtfully. Li Zishuan smiled and said, haha. Because I know that even if I don't ask, someone will definitely say it. Brother Xiao Xian, you. Changle was speechless, but after hesitating for a moment, she still said, Steward An's name isn't Dezhong. He's an old man who previously served by Imperial grandfather's side. He has a very good relationship with eldest uncle. After Imperial father ascended the throne, Stewardin was arranged to the Imperial Ancestral Temple to guard the memorial tablets of Emperor Taizu and Emperor Shizu. Although it's like this, Stewardin relies on his previous connections and has quite a bit of prestige in the palace. Moreover, due to Imperial grandfather's relationship, Imperial father also can't be too harsh on Stewardin. Therefore, Tranquil didn't want brother Xiao Xian to have a conflict with Stewardin. After Li Yuan ascended the throne, his father Li Gui was posthumously awarded the title of Emperor Yuan, and the temple was named Shizu. His grandfather Li Hu was posthumously awarded the title of Emperor Jing, and the temple was named Emperor Taizu. Both memorial tablets were enshrined in the Imperial Ancestral Temple to receive the incense of future generations. So this is Li Yuan's steward eunuch, no wonder he's so arrogant. Li Zishuan heard this and suddenly understood. He muttered in his heart, and then looked at Tranquil and said gently, I understand. Thank you Tranquil for the reminder. Tranquil smiled sweetly and said, Brother Xiao Xian, you're welcome. Li Zishuan smiled and said, Haha, all right. We're already at Vermilion Bird Gate, Tranquil, as a tour guide, you should return to the palace. Brother Xiao Xian still has important matters to attend to and can't stay in the imperial city any longer. Oh. Tranquil looked at Li Zishuan reluctantly, but she didn't want to show it too obviously. The reluctance in her eyes only flashed for a moment. She nodded and said softly, then Brother Xiao Xian, I'll return to the palace first. Take care. Also, don't worry if you can't complete the mission that Imperial Father gave you. When the time comes, Tranquil will plead for mercy for you. Li Zishuan shook his head and laughed in spite of himself, saying, Then I'll thank Tranquil in advance for her kindness. Oh, right. These 2 days, Chang and city isn't peaceful. Tranquil, you and Qingxian try not to leave the palace. Just stay in the palace and don't go anywhere. Understand? He thought about how the dragon sect would attack Chang and city tomorrow and detonate the hidden bombs buried in the city. He couldn't help but want to remind Tranquil. Tranquil's heart warmed as she nodded heavily and said, I'll listen to Brother Xiao Xian and stay in the palace with Brother Crown Prince these 2 days. We won't go anywhere. Go back quickly. Li Zishuan smiled and said. Brother Xiao Xian, take care. Tranquil waved her hand and turned to leave. Gradually, Tranquil disappeared from sight. The smile on Li Zishuan's face also disappeared. He didn't directly leave Vermilion Bird Gate, but turned right and walked towards the Imperial Ancestral Temple again. The Dragon Sect, the true Dragon Son of Heaven. Does the Dragon Sect want to be the true Dragon Son of Heaven, or is it related to the true Dragon Son of Heaven? This in Dijon, I'm afraid there's something wrong with him. After knowing the identity of the old eunuch, Li Zishuan did not feel relieved at all. Instead, he felt a sense of danger. First, there was the assassination in Shi City, and then there was the strange smell that he smelled in front of the Imperial Ancestral Temple. Then, there was the light that flashed on the little eunuch's sleeve before he left. Combined with the old eunuch's identity, these seemingly unrelated events seemed to have some kind of connection when he thought about it carefully. It was extremely frightening. Therefore, Li Zishuan didn't plan to leave the imperial city. He had to thoroughly investigate the abnormality in the Imperial Ancestral Temple. As for why he wanted to send Tranquil away, it was mainly because he saw a flash of cold light on the little eunuch's sleeve in front of the Imperial Ancestral Temple. That was obviously a sharp dagger. Li Zishuan was very confident in his martial arts. As long as the little eunuch dared to make a move, he was 100% sure that he could subdue him in an instant. However, Li Zishuan wasn't clear about the old eunuch's position and depth. He wasn't sure if Dijon would make a move on Tranquil while he was subduing the little eunuch. Therefore, for Tranquil's safety, Li Zishuan could only think of a way to send the little girl away first. After a while, he gritted his teeth and shouted, "Marquis Yong, and how dare you? How dare you fake an imperial edict? Men, quickly arrest Marquis Yong, and..." Yes. The 4 or 5 eunuchs immediately surrounded Li Zishuan, and the atmosphere in the room became tense. Without another word, Xianxia pulled out the dagger hidden in his sleeves and thrust it at Li Zishuan's throat in a flash. Chapter 1590. Humph. You're courting death. Li Zishuan did not panic in the face of the sudden assassination attempt. On the contrary, he had been looking forward to this moment for a long time. As long as these people could not help but make a move, it meant that they were guilty. It also meant that he was getting closer to the truth. When the dagger in Xianxia's hand was 3 inches away from Li Zishuan's throat, Li Zishuan leaned back slightly, and the dagger that was flickering with cold light missed. Li Zishuan didn't intend to let Xianxia go just like that. He placed his right hand on Xianxia's wrist and gently squeezed. Suddenly, with a "kacha" sound, Xianxia let out a painful howl because his wrist was completely dislocated. Immediately after, Li Zishuan's other hand directly grabbed Xianxia's clothes, lifted him up, and ruthlessly smashed him towards the 4 little eunuchs who were about to rush up. Immediately, there were miserable cries of "ouch." These people did not know martial arts at all. Li Zishuan did not feel any pressure when dealing with them. He took care of them with one move. However, there was still one more person in the room. The moment Li Zishuan tossed little Anzi out, and De Jong also moved. The old eunuch instantly disappeared from where he was standing, and in the next moment, he was 10 feet behind Li Zishuan. His palm turned into a claw, and he ruthlessly grabbed at the back of Li Zishuan's neck. This speed was definitely not something an ordinary person could possess. The old eunuch was also a martial arts expert. He was at least close to the Grandmaster realm or had already reached the Grandmaster realm. What was worse was that the old eunuch's fingernails were purplish black. In this era, there were no nail salons that could dye people's fingernails. The old eunuch's fingernails were purplish black, which meant that he had applied poison on them. Humph. You are indeed not ordinary. Although Li Zishuan's back was facing in De Jong, he did not let his guard down. When he first met in De Jong, he felt that he could not see through in De Jong's strength. He had always been on guard against this old eunuch. Li Zishuan did not dare to let his guard down in the face of the old eunuch's claw. He turned around with lightning speed, drew the wind-chasing sword from his waist, and slashed at De Jong's claw. So what if his fingernails were poisoned? Could it be that they could withstand a sword? When he had left the Taiji Palace, the wind-chasing sword had been returned to him. Right now, he could use it to deal with De Jong. Wind-chasing sword was incomparably sharp and cold. And De Jong naturally did not dare to receive it head-on. He grunted and hurriedly retreated. When he reached the corner of the wall, there was an iron rod leaning against the wall. And De Jong's face lit up with joy. He hurriedly grabbed the iron rod and kicked off the wall with his right foot. His entire body changed from retreating to advancing, flying towards Li Zishuan. Clang! 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 The metal rod collided fiercely with the wind-chasing sword in the air, producing a series of clanging sounds. However, the wind-chasing sword was so sharp that even though the metal rod was solid, it was still an ordinary metal. After a while, the metal rod was cut into the shape of a hedgehog by the wind-chasing sword. Since they were in the house, Li Zishuan could not use his swordsmanship. If he used all his swordsmanship, it was very likely that he would destroy the entire house. Even if he found out that De Jong was hiding behind the scenes, Li Er would not let him off easily. After all, this was the imperial ancestral temple. Therefore, Li Zishuan could only rely on brute force and the most primitive sword moves to deal with De Jong's swordsmanship. Even so, it was enough. Humph. I didn't expect that there would be a master in the imperial ancestral temple. Chiefin, you must be hiding here for something big, right? Li Zishuan blasted De Jong away with his sword, and then a wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth as he spoke indifferently. The De Jong in front of him was only at the beginner stage of Grandmaster. Moreover, due to the fact that his body was damaged, his personal strength was weaker than an ordinary master. After Ndizhong steadied himself, he took 2 deep breaths. Then, with a face full of resentment, he said, "Li Zishuan, don't be conceited and arrogant just because you are strong in martial arts and are favored by the emperor. There will be a day when you, your parents, and your wife will be beheaded because of your meddling in other people's business today. You will regret it. He. You. Die." Li Zishuan's face turned cold. His eyes were filled with murderous intent and coldness. He could allow others to harm him, but he could not tolerate others threatening his family. After saying that, Li Zishuan held the wind-chasing sword in his hand and stabbed it into Ndizhong's chest. He. Come on. Kill me, ah. If you kill me, your whole family will be buried with me. Ha. Seeing Li Zishuan coming at him with sword in hand, Ndizhong seemed to have gone mad. He threw his head back and laughed loudly. He actually stood straight on the spot without dodging, planning to use his flesh and blood to receive Li Zishuan's sword strike. The reason for this was mainly because after the battle just now, Ndizhong already knew Li Zishuan's current strength and martial arts realm. He was fully aware that he could not defeat Li Zishuan no matter what. Instead of being captured and interrogated, it would be more straightforward to die under Li Zishuan's sword. Perhaps to him, this was the most perfect ending. Seeing that Ndizhong did not dodge, it was obvious that he was ready to die. Li Zishuan's wind-chasing sword in his hand moved slightly to the left before it touched Ndizhong. With a "chi" sound, the long sword pierced through Ndizhong's shoulder. Ah! Why? Why don't you kill me? Ndizhong shouted. His voice was filled with disbelief and anger. Li Zishuan sneered, "You want to die so easily? Wouldn't that be too easy for you?" After saying that, he took 2 steps forward and sealed the artery on Ndizhong's arm to prevent him from bleeding to death. Then, without waiting for Ndizhong to react, he broke his other arm. After doing all this, Li Zishuan looked at the 5 young eunuchs in the room and the old eunuch, Ndizhong. Then, he clapped his hands, indicating that he was done. Li Zishuan thought for a moment. With so many eunuchs, he wouldn't be able to escort them all by himself. Li Zishuan strode out of the Imperial Ancestral Temple in a flash and shouted in the direction of the southern gate, "Someone come quickly. There's an assassin in the Imperial Ancestral Temple." Whoosh! When the guards outside in Men's Gate heard this, they immediately moved and ran towards Li Zishuan's location. Li Zishuan nodded in satisfaction. Then, he turned around and returned to the small room. Quick! Feed me the medicine first." Just as he reached the door, Li Zishuan heard Ndizhong's urgent shouts from inside the room. He suddenly thought of something and hurriedly lifted his feet to step into the room. He saw that the 3 eunuchs were already foaming at the mouth and collapsed on the ground. Poison, this was obviously the symptom of poison. Another young eunuch was holding a small porcelain bottle. He took out a small black pill from the bottle and fed it to Ndizhong. Stop. Chapter 1591. The wood was lying on the body of the ancient building, suffering from the torture of nature as it became modeled day by day. Thunder and lightning were the most unwilling to be lonely. They would jump from the clouds and bite the body of the wood again and again. Therefore, the ancient craftsmen used their wisdom to launch a game in exchange for the survival of the residents under the thunder and fire. On the bank of the vast Dongting Lake, there stood a 39-meter-high octagonal 7-story brick tower. It looked particularly tall and straight. The brick tower was octagonal and pointed at the top. In the middle, there was a dark iron pestle pointing to the sky. The decorations around were structured according to the structure, showing the appearance of an octagonal sandwich. A few iron chains connected to the top and fixed the structure climbed along the ridge to the wing corners, winding down and finally converting to the earth in a crawling posture. It was the Xianxia Tower, and also the earliest evidence of the confrontation between the wisdom of the ancestors of this ancient civilization and the thunder and fire. It was the combination of the iron pestle and the iron chains that enabled the ancient tower to escape from the thunder and fire countless times. The lightning rod was not a product of modern society. As early as more than 1,000 years ago, it appeared in the Central Plains. In the Roasted Scorch, there was such a record. In the Han Dynasty, Bai Liang Hall was in a fire. A wizard suggested that a fishtail-shaped copper tile should be placed on the roof to prevent the fire caused by thunder and lightning. The fishtail-shaped tile on the roof was actually used as a lightning rod. It could be regarded as the prototype of the lightning rod. In ancient times, when the gods embraced each other, simple technology could only take root and sprout in the doubts of the ancestors by turning around the mountains around religion. Therefore, the ancestors' avoidance of thunder and lightning followed the civilization of that era and were herded in the river valley waiting for awakening. In the traditional culture of China, metaphysics was quite representative, such as the 5 elements and the 8 trigrams. In the field of the 8 trigrams, the Zhen hexagram represented thunder. After combining the positions, there were also South Li, North Can, East Zhen, West Dui, as well as South Sparrow, North Black Tortoise, Turtle Snake, East Azure Dragon, West White Tiger. Therefore, under the presumption of the magicians, the ancients unanimously formed the thought that thunder followed the dragon. From then on, in order to prevent buildings from being struck by lightning, the forebears had to construct and install lightning protection facilities, which were known as dragon suppression. Sun Fujia politely cupped her fists and returned a bow to Li Zishuan. Then, she stood up and left the hall with Changping. In the blink of an eye, only Li Zishuan and Lu Dui were left in the hall. After a few moments of silence, Lu Dui said, "Marquis is a young hero. He single-handedly saw through the schemes of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Otherwise, the Imperial Ancestral Temple would have been destroyed by lightning tomorrow, and this old man would have died 10,000 deaths. For this matter, this Lu and the Supreme Court owe Marquis a great favor." After saying this, Lu Dui stood up and clasped his fists to Li Zishuan. Before Changping had come to report, Li Zishuan had told Lu Dui and Sun Fujia about Li Juanxian's secret letter and what they had experienced in the Imperial Ancestral Temple. Firstly, the Supreme Court needed to help solve the case and needed to know some inside information. Secondly, Lu Dui and Sun Fujia had always been staunch supporters of the Qin King's faction. They would never collude with the Heavenly Dragon sect. By telling them, Li Zishuan did not need to worry that they would leak the secret. Official Lu's words are too serious. You and I are both His Majesty's subjects. We eat from the sovereign and share the sovereign's burdens. This is what this marquis should do. Li Zishuan hastily got up and clasped his fists in return. Chapter 1594. Isn't this because of the Jade Lake holy water? In the main hall of the Supreme Court, Li Zishuan was stunned for a moment before answering Lu Dui's question. Regarding the Jade Lake holy water, Li Zishuan had heard Li Tai mention it in a telegram before returning to Cloud Mountain. It was said to be able to cure all diseases and had been passed down as miraculous by the people. Of course, Li Zishuan had to admit that the dragon sect's methods were indeed brilliant. This was because most people were greedy for life, especially those who were seriously ill and incurable. If there was a chance to live, they would be willing to do anything. The dragon sect used the Jade Lake holy water to stimulate the desire of the people to live, which was why they were able to recruit so many followers in such a short period of time. Unexpectedly, Lu Dui shook his head and said, "Marquis Yong, do you really believe that there is a miracle medicine or jade lake holy water that can cure all diseases in this world? Li Zishuan frowned and replied decisively, this marquis naturally does not believe in such things. Heaven and earth give birth to all things, and all things can complement each other and also counter each other. All medicines are targeted at the symptoms. What kind of illness one is suffering from must be the medicine used. If someone says that there is a medicine that can cure all diseases, then that person must be a liar. The medical technology of the 21st century was so advanced, but there were still so many incurable diseases. In the Great Tang, where medical technology was lacking, how could there be a miracle medicine that could cure all diseases? Li Zishuan would never believe such nonsense even if he was beaten to death. Hearing this, Lu Dui stroked his beard and laughed, haha. Marquis Yong, and you are not the only one who doesn't believe it. Anyone with the slightest bit of medical knowledge would not believe that the Jade Lake holy water can cure all diseases. As the Grand Steward of the retired Emperor, and De Jong's knowledge and experience were extensive. How could he not know this? Besides, and De Jong's body is very healthy, and I've never heard of him having any bedridden family members. The so-called Jade Lake holy water is not attractive to him. Hearing Lu Dui's words, Li Zishuan was startled because he felt that Lu Dui's words were very reasonable. Previously, the commoners were fighting to join the Heavenly Dragon sect because of the Yao Qi holy water, so he subconsciously thought that everyone wanted to join because of the Yao Qi holy water. However, he had neglected the most basic requirement. Many people did not believe in the Heavenly Dragon's sacred water, nor did they need it. For example, An De Jong. Then, in Minister Lu's opinion, why did An De Jong betray the imperial court and help the tyrant? After a moment of silence, Li Zishuan said seriously. Chapter 1595. Marquis Yong, and, since His Majesty has given you the power to mobilize all forces to investigate the case, Marquis Yong, and, you don't need to be afraid of the slightest thing. Once you find out that the officials of King Shi's faction have been in contact with Du Yi, you can send troops to ambush them around their residences. Tomorrow, when the dragon sect attacks the city, if they make any strange movements, you can take them all down. Once the dragon sect is destroyed, His Majesty will naturally be free to punish those officials. In the Supreme Court, Lu Dui stood up and looked sternly at Li Zishuan. In fact, he said this with a certain degree of selfishness. In his view, if Li Zishuan directly went to see Li Er and made the matter clear, Li Er would definitely be forced to carry out a major investigation. However, even if the officials of Li Jianqing's faction were found to have been in contact with Du Yi, there was no direct evidence to prove that they had agreed to Du Yi's request. With insufficient evidence and the fact that most of those officials had not done anything to betray the court, Li Er would most likely pardon them again in order to show his image as a benevolent ruler. But among those pardoned officials, there were bound to be many fish that had escaped the net. Although Li Er had pardoned them, they were a ticking time bomb for the Great Tang. They did not have time to rebel against the court during the dragon sect's uprising, so if someone were to use Li Jianqing's banner to rebel next time, who knew if those officials would be swayed again? Thus, rather than burying a hidden danger in the future, it was better to settle the matter now. When those officials of King Shi's faction really did comply with Du Yi's request to work for the dragon sect, he could directly come forward and catch them red-handed. This way, Li Er would have no reason to forgive those officials, and the Great Tang would have fewer hidden dangers in the future. Moreover, this move could ensure that the political situation of the Great Tang Imperial Court could quickly stabilize. It could be said to be killing many birds with one stone. Li Zishuan was not stupid. After thinking for a while, he could more or less guess at Lu Dui's good intentions. This method was indeed an extremely good one for the Great Tang Imperial Court, but for Li Zishuan, it was not so good. Because this meant that he would become the butcher's knife that Li Er waved at the officials of Li Jianqing's faction. He would offend many people because of this. Marquis Yong, and you've said it yourself just now. Those who are paid by the emperor should share the emperor's burdens. Being indecisive will only lead to chaos. If the matter of King Shi is not completely resolved, there will be endless trouble in the future. Furthermore, more innocent people will die because of this in the future. How could Lu Dui not see the hesitation in Li Zishuan's heart? Therefore, he added. After pondering for a long time, Li Zishuan finally nodded and said, "Okay. Then let's do as Minister Lu says. But this Marquis's actions are not for his divine majesty's sake, but for the Great Tang, so that the common people of the Great Tang will no longer die from internal strife. As descendants of the Yellow Emperor, we should unite against the outside world. When the Great Tang dominates the world, we will look back and realize how childish and laughable today's internal strife was." Without waiting for Lu Dui's response, Li Zishuan turned around and left. The Great Tang dominates the world. I hope I can see this day in my lifetime. In the hall, Lu Dui looked at Li Zishuan's back and sighed. After leaving the Supreme Court, Li Zishuan went straight out of the Imperial Palace and went to Duke Wei's mansion. Although he had Li Heir's Imperial Edict and Gold Medallion, which allowed him to mobilize any troop in the capital, he had to inform Li Jing, the Minister of War and a military expert. After all, he was far less familiar with the 12 guards of the capital than Li Jing. When he arrived at the Li mansion, it was fortunate that the Red Buddha lady was not there. Otherwise, he would be scolded again. Because a few days ago, the bearded guest was almost killed by Wu Jia in order to protect Yanhuang College. Given the relationship between the Red Buddha lady and the bearded guest, she would definitely scold Li Zishuan when she saw him. Under Li Dijian's lead, Li Zishuan quickly met with Li Jing. Several hours ago, Li Jing was still participating in a meeting at the Suite Du Hall, so he naturally knew about the secret letter that Li Junxian had sent to Li Zishuan. Thus, Li Zishuan only told Li Jing about Lu Dui's conjecture and his intention to mobilize troops. After hearing the general situation, Li Jing couldn't help but frown. He looked at Li Zishuan with a serious expression and said, "Little Xian, this matter involves King Shi and is no small matter. Have you really thought it through?" These words didn't make any sense, but Li Jing was very sure that Li Zishuan could understand them. "I've thought it through. There are some things that have to be done, or else the hidden dangers will continue to exist, and the future of the Great Tang will be uncertain. When the hidden dangers erupt again, many people will die because of it." Li Zishuan also looked at Li Jing with a serious expression. "Good." Li Jing looked at Li Zishuan with a complicated expression, both praise and worry. This was because he wasn't sure how Li Zishuan's decision would affect Li Zishuan in the future. After a few moments of silence, he said, "This old man will write you an order to mobilize troops. In truth, in terms of concealment, the soldiers of the Right Guard are the best. Right now, Jijia isn't in Chang'an, so take this old man's order and go to the Right Guard camp to mobilize troops. No one will dare to make things difficult for you." Qing Yao Jin was the great general of the Right Guard. After saying this, he picked up the brush on the table and prepared to write an order. Li Zishuan very perceptively stepped forward to help Li Jing grind the ink. As he did so, he said gratefully, "Many thanks, Uncle Li." Li Jing nodded slightly and didn't say anything. Soon, an order for the transfer of troops was written. Li Jing took out his personal seal and stamped it heavily on the order, then passed it to Li Zishuan and said, "This is the order for the transfer of troops. Little Xian, take it well." "Okay." Li Zishuan quickly took it with both hands. He had planned to leave, but Li Jing said, "Little Xian, let this old man recall for a moment, and then I'll give you a list of the officials who were close to King Shi. Later, you can screen them according to the list." Hearing this, Li Zishuan's face immediately revealed a trace of surprise. He quickly cupped his hands and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Uncle Li." In fact, he had been worried about how to get a list of the King Shi's faction. Although he came from the modern era and had read some history books and had an excellent memory, he didn't have the ability to list all the officials who were close to Li Jianqing. However, Li Jing was different. Li Jing had experienced the open and secret struggle between the King of Qin and Crown Prince Li Jianqing. Regarding who was around Li Jianqing, Li Jing was definitely one of the people who had the most right to speak. "It's fine." Li Jing shook his head, then closed his eyes and began to meditate. Li Zixuan didn't disturb him, but stood quietly at the side. When he was bored, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a book on Li Jing's desk. There were 3 big words on the cover: Yin Talisman Machine. Li Zixuan couldn't help but be moved. He thought to himself that it turned out that Li Jing had already begun to organize his military and war experience into the art of war at this time. It was a pity that the original work couldn't be passed down. Future generations could only see the big picture from the general classic and the art of war in the Taiping Imperial Library. It was really a pity. When Li Jing's art of war is finished, I must borrow a copy of it and store it in the library of Yanhuang College for future students to study. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a pity if such a good art of war was lost? Li Zixuan secretly made up his mind. According to historical records, Li Jing's art of war was written in 7 books: Yin Talisman Machine, Secret Art of War, General Essentials of War, Notes of Duke Wei, Mirror of 6 Armies, New Book of War, and Archery. However, these books weren't complete as early as the Middle and Late Tang Dynasty. In the 21st century, most of them were lost. The Qing Dynasty scholar Wang Zongqi compiled the Li Weigong Art of War, based on Du Yu's General Classic, Du Mu's Commentary on Sun Tzu, and the Song Dynasty's Taiping Imperial Library and General Essentials of War. It became the only complete reference for modern scholars to study Li Jing's art of war. While Li Zixuan was deep in thought, Li Jing had already started writing. The names of Li Jianxing's faction were written on the paper one by one. Li Zixuan's eyesight was extremely good. When he looked over, he was shocked to see the words written on it: Wei Zheng, Wang Gui, Wei Ting, Shui Wanche, Feng Li. Among these names, there was no lack of big shots in the imperial court. For example, Wei Zheng and Wang Gui were not only important by Li Jianxing's side, they were also important existences in the current imperial court. At this moment, Li Zixuan suddenly felt a little scared in his heart. Every time Li Jing wrote a name, Li Zixuan's heart would beat fiercely. After an unknown period of time, Li Jing finally put away the brush. When the ink on the paper was almost dry, he picked it up with a solemn expression and handed it to Li Zixuan. Little Xian, these are almost all the officials in King Shi's faction who still hold positions in the imperial court. However, you need to weigh the pros and cons. Although some of them served King Shi back then, they have been conscientious and loyal ever since His Majesty ascended the throne. They are only loyal to the monarch and do not care who is the monarch. As long as the monarch treats the people well, they will serve him loyally. I have selected a few such officials for you. I believe that they will not betray His Majesty because of the bewitchment of the dragon sect. Li Zixuan knew that Li Jing was helping him to clear the mine and let him not offend people as much as possible under the premise of doing things well. He couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He nodded and said, "Thank you very much, Uncle Li. I will know what to do." Li Jing pondered for a moment and said, "Little Xian, later use the telegraph to ask Xu Bao and Ji Jia where the army is going. See if they can rush back to Cheng and before tomorrow. If they can, we will definitely win the battle to defend the city tomorrow easily." Uncle Qin and Uncle Cheng. Hearing this, Li Zixuan's eyes lit up. He said excitedly, "That's right. How could little nephew forget about this?" Uncle Qin and the rest led 10,000 elite light cavalry. After I left yesterday, they have already returned to the imperial court. They should not be far from Cheng and now, right? If they can arrive before tomorrow and set up an ambush in advance, we can attack from both inside and outside and defeat the Dragon Sect's army in one fell swoop. Li Jing smiled and said, "Exactly. If not for worrying about the Dragon Sect's people being alert, I would have advised His Majesty to send an army out of the city in advance to set up an ambush." Fortunately, Xu Bao and the rest still led 10,000 elites outside the city and can catch the Dragon Sect by surprise. Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Good. I will send a telegram to Uncle Qin and the rest. Then I will go to the Right Guard's camp to mobilize the troops." Chapter 1596. Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and came to the palace and borrowed the telegraph machine. In the afternoon, Zhao Song came to Ganlu Palace and bowed to Li Er. The telegraph machine was specially kept by Zhao Song in the palace. It was not used often and was placed in a small room in Taiji Palace. It was basically a telegraph machine used by the royal family and was usually not open to the public. However, Li Zixuan was an exception because he was the one who invented the telegraph machine. Therefore, when Zhao Song heard that Li Zixuan wanted to borrow the telegraph machine, he did not refuse after some consideration. Li Er frowned and asked, "Telegraph machine? Why does he want to borrow the telegraph machine? Who is he sending a telegram to?" Zhao Song replied, "Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and is sending a telegram to General Qin and General Cheng, asking where the army is now and if they can reach Chang and city before tomorrow." Li Er was also a veteran in battle. Hearing this, his eyes lit up and he could not help but say, "This kid wants to borrow Xu Bao's army to attack the dragon sect from both inside and outside tomorrow? Good. I did not misjudge him. This brat's talent in military formations was no less than his talent in engineering. He is a promising talent." His words revealed his undisguised admiration for Li Zixuan. Zhao Song could not help but secretly admire Li Zixuan's imperial favor. There was no one else like him. It is all thanks to your Majesty's discerning eyes. Otherwise, a young talent like the Marquis of Yong, and might be buried in the marketplace. Zhao Song clasped his hands together and smiled, giving him a flattering compliment. Li Er shook his head. After a moment of silence, he asked, "How did Xu Bao reply?" "Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and said that General Qin and the rest have already marched to the same continent. If they march day and night, they will reach Chang and city at midnight tonight." Zhao Song did not know anything about telegraphy, so he could only repeat what Li Zixuan had said to Li Er. Li Er could not help but nod and say, "Good." Did Li Zixuan let Xu Bao and the others set up an ambush outside Chang and city, waiting for the dragon sect to attack Chang and city tomorrow with the help of the city's defenders? Zhao Song shook his head and said, "No." The Marquis of Yong and left after asking about the location of the army. Li Er was stunned and then understood. He could not help but laugh and scolded, "Good. Now you know how to follow the rules." Li Er understood that Li Zixuan's actions were to avoid overstepping his authority and being suspected. Today, in order to investigate the dragon sect's conspiracy, he had indeed given Li Zixuan the authority to mobilize the army. However, that was only the army in Chang and city and did not include the army led by Qin Xiong that had just retreated from the front lines. If Li Zixuan had rashly ordered Qin Xiong's army to set up an ambush, even if Li Er did not punish Li Zixuan, he would still feel uncomfortable and estranged. Therefore, Li Zixuan only asked about the location of Qin Xiong's army and left. He believed that once old Li knew of the situation, he would definitely send an order to Qin Xiong to set up an ambush outside Chang and city. There was no need for him to worry. This was where Li Zixuan was smart. He knew when to stop and when to retreat. After pausing for a moment, Li Er indeed opened his mouth and ordered, "Zhao Song, immediately pass down the order. Have the Marquis of Yong and send a telegram to Xu Bao. Order the army to march day and night and set up camp 20 miles outside Chang and city. Be careful and hide. When you receive my order tomorrow, immediately send troops to eliminate the rebels outside Chang and city." With the combined efforts of all the teachers and students of Yanhuang College, the communication technology of the telegram was becoming more and more mature. The palace was indeed equipped with a telegram, but they lacked the professionals to use it. Li Er had specially selected a few clever and loyal eunuchs with clean backgrounds and sent them to Yanhuang College to learn how to use the telegram. However, those eunuchs had yet to return from their studies. Therefore, in order to know the news from Longmen Pass, he had specially summoned Li Tai back from Yanhuang College to help send the telegram and translate the messages. Now that Li Tai was taking his final exams at Yanhuang College, he would definitely not be able to pass. Therefore, Li Er had no choice but to assign the task to Li Zixuan again. "Yes, Your Majesty." Zhao Song bowed and answered, then continued, "The Marquis of Yong and should be at the right guard yamen now. Your Majesty, I will bring the telegram to him." "Wait. Li Er's expression changed. He stopped Zhao Song and asked, "You said that Li Zishuan is at the right guard yamen. What is he doing there?" Zhao Song replied carefully, Your Majesty, I heard the Marquis of Yong and say that he is going to the right guard yamen to mobilize troops to investigate the possible remnants of the dragon sect in Chang and city. The possible remnants of the dragon sect in Chang and city? When Li Er heard this, he seemed to have understood something. His eyes flashed and he said faintly, "Tell Li Zishuan to go ahead and investigate. No matter who is involved, deal with it strictly according to the law. Tell him not to have any fear because I am his backer." His words were resolute and decisive, but one could also hear Li Er's determination to cut off his wrist like a warrior. Zhao Song's heart skipped a beat. He bowed and said, Your Majesty. Haha. Rengui, I haven't seen you for a few months and you've been promoted? In the right guard yamen in the outer imperial city, Li Zishuan took out the imperial edict and Li Jing's order to mobilize troops. After he expressed his intention to mobilize troops, the general who had received him earlier immediately turned and left. Not long after, an old acquaintance walked in. It was Lu Rengui, who had made outstanding contributions in quelling the rebellion in Guan City and was later promoted to the right commander of the right guard by Li Er. Thus, Li Zishuan stood up and couldn't help but laugh heartily. Lu Rengui quickly waved his hands and said, Marquis, please don't make fun of me. Now that General Cheng is not in the capital, I am only temporarily taking over the military affairs for General Cheng. The reason why Lu Rengui was able to enter the right guard was not only because of his contributions, but also because Cheng Yaojin had secretly added fuel to the fire. During the battle in Guan City, Cheng Yaojin had admired Lu Rengui's ability, so old Cheng had asked Li Er to transfer Lu Rengui under his command. Of course, Lu Rengui did not disappoint old Cheng. After joining the right guards, Lu Rengui was not only extremely hardworking in training, but also very few people could compare to him in terms of military strategy and ability to get along with others. Gradually, Cheng Yaojin began to give Lu Rengui more tasks. Haha. Rengui, you're too humble. I'm a little regretful now that I didn't personally go to the battlefield to quell the rebellion in Guan City. As a result, I didn't get to see the battle of wits and courage between Rengui and the Chui and Jing families. Li Zishuan laughed and said, Marquis, you flatter me. Lu Rengui was a little embarrassed by Li Zishuan's praise, but when he thought of Li Zishuan's intention, he quickly said seriously, I heard that Marquis came to the right guard to mobilize troops. May I ask how many troops Marquis wants to mobilize? Where will these troops be used? It wasn't that he suspected Li Zishuan of any bad intentions, but since he was now helping Cheng Yaojin manage the affairs of the right guard, he still had to ask clearly about something as important as mobilizing troops. This Marquis plans to mobilize 5,000 elite troops from the right guard to investigate the remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect in Chang and city. These people must train hard and be good at hiding. Li Zishuan replied indifferently. Remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect? Lu Rengui frowned. Being in the army, he naturally didn't know that the mastermind behind the kidnapping of Li Qingxian and Chang'e was very likely related to the Heavenly Dragon sect. But although he didn't know, he didn't ask too much. Instead, he stood up and said, Good. This general will go and organize a force of 5,000 elite soldiers and then follow the Marquis of Yong, and to investigate the remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Chapter 1601. Rengui, take the right guards and surround the Supreme Court. Tonight, no one from the Supreme Court is allowed to leave. No one is allowed to leave. Do you understand? Outside the Supreme Court, after seeing Lu Dui off, Li Zixuan looked at Lu Rengui and solemnly instructed. Hearing this, Lu Rengui felt a little awkward. He was just a lowly officer in the right guards. How could he have the authority to surround the Supreme Court? Wasn't this drawing hatred to the right guards? But when he saw Li Zixuan's solemn face, he thought for a moment and immediately reacted. Marquis is worried that someone from the Supreme Court will spread the news of Du Yi's arrest, thus alerting the enemy and causing Dragon Sect to not dare to come down the mountain again. Li Zixuan had also told Lu Rengui about the Dragon Sect's secret letter that Li Junxian had sent back. That was why Lu Rengui had such a guess. Yes, but not all of them. Li Zixuan nodded and then shook his head. Half a month ago, in order to obtain the Heavenly Dragon's sacred water and swear loyalty to the Dragon Sect, the Supreme Court's warden Yihong colluded with outsiders to kill a key witness, the shopkeeper of the Yanhuang Bank in Xinfeng County, Jin Wanfu. Since the Supreme Court has Yihong, there might be dozens or even hundreds of Yihong who are loyal to the Dragon Sect and could betray the court at any time. Once the news of Du Yi's capture spreads, the spies of the Dragon Sect in Chang and will definitely do everything they can to pass the news to the Snake Spirit Mountain. At that time, whether the dragon head of the Dragon Sect will dare to send troops as scheduled will be an unknown. In addition, if those with evil intentions in Chang and know that Du Yi has been captured, they will probably have scruples and not give themselves away. As he finished speaking, the corners of Li Zixuan's mouth curled into a meaningful sneer. Naturally, he was referring to the officials in Chang and city who might have colluded with the Dragon Sect. Today, he had mobilized 5,000 soldiers from the right guards and deployed an inescapable net near the houses of the key suspects. Was it not to wait for those officials to open the city gates for the Dragon Sect tomorrow or to create chaos? Only when Li Er dealt with those old officials who were still loyal to Li Jianxing would there be no controversy, and old Li would not be labeled as narrow-minded. Lu Rengui's expression turned solemn as he cupped his fists and said, "This general obeys. I won't let anyone walk out of the Supreme Court tonight." "Yes. Thank you for your hard work." Li Zixuan patted Lu Rengui's shoulder and walked into the Supreme Court. Under the guidance of a bailiff, Li Zixuan came to a torture chamber in the Supreme Court. Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, Sun Fujia, and Du Yi were all inside. However, Du Yi had changed into a white prison uniform and his hands and feet were shackled in a tie shape. He was tied to a wooden frame. When Li Zixuan pushed open the door and entered, there was an interrogation going on inside. "Marquis Yong, and you're here." Hearing the movement, Lu Dui and the others turned to look. Then, Lu Dui stood up and greeted Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan cupped his fists and returned the greeting. He went straight to the point and said, "How did the interrogation go? What did this Du Yi recruit?" Hearing this, Sun Fujia smiled bitterly and cupped her fists. "Marquis, this Du Yi is very stubborn. He said that he will only confess if you come. Otherwise, even if we torture him, he won't say a word." "There's actually such a thing?" Li Zixuan frowned, and then he walked up to Du Yi and asked in a cold voice, "Du Yi, since things have come to this, do you still refuse to realize your error and continue down this path until it's dark?" Du Yi raised his head and looked at Li Zixuan. He asked, "If this poor monk tells you the truth about the Dragon Sect, will you spare this poor monk?" Li Zixuan narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said, "Are you trying to negotiate with this marquis?" Thinking about how he almost died under Li Zixuan's sword, Du Yi couldn't help but tremble. He hurriedly shook his head. "This poor monk only wants to find a way to live. I hope Marquis Yong and can fulfill my wish. You don't have the right to negotiate with this marquis." Li Zixuan turned around and said indifferently with his hands behind his back, "Even if you don't say anything, the Dragon Sect will still be defeated when they attack Chang and city tomorrow. This marquis is only asking you to give you a chance." "What? How do you know that the Dragon Sect will attack the city tomorrow?" Du Yi was shocked when he heard this. He was planning to use this information to exchange for a chance to survive, but Li Zishuan's words completely extinguished his hope. Humph. This marquis not only knows that the dragon sect will attack Chang and city tomorrow, but I also know that the dragon sect is hiding in Snake Spirit Mountain. Li Zishuan snorted coldly and threw another, heavy bomb, at Du Yi. Du Yi's mouth opened in shock. Li Zishuan's eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. He looked at the shocked Du Yi and asked, "Are you very puzzled why this marquis didn't report to the imperial court and send an army to besiege Snake Spirit Mountain after knowing that the dragon sect is in there?" Du Yi nodded. Although he didn't say anything, his meaning was self-evident. Li Zishuan stared into Du Yi's eyes and said word by word, "Because the current emperor has already set up an inescapable net in and outside the city, waiting for the dragon sect to fall into the net. The dragon head of the dragon sect wants to use the incident of the imperial ancestral temple to incite the people to rebel against the imperial court and cause chaos in the city so that he can attack the city, right?" Du Yi's eyes finally revealed a trace of fear. He said in a trembling voice, "Impossible. Only the dragon head and I know about this matter. How could you know that we buried something in the imperial ancestral temple? You are the devil, you are the devil." Li Zishuan sneered, "If you don't want people to know, don't do it. Your plan that you thought was foolproof is full of loopholes in my eyes. Therefore, the internal and external troubles of Chang and city have been eliminated. We are only waiting for your dragon head to walk into the net tomorrow. If you are still unwilling to tell the truth, then this marquis will kill you now. Anyway, if you don't say something, there will be someone else who will." Merciless. Li Zishuan's words mercilessly destroyed all the thoughts in Du Yi's heart. He stared at Li Zishuan, his eyes revealing shock, fear, and unwillingness. Yes, he was unreconciled. After a long time, Du Yi sighed dejectedly and muttered to himself, "No wonder. No wonder the dragon head said that you are the biggest variable in our plan. Only you can break our dragon slaying plan. Now it seems that the dragon sect really lost because of you. Hateful. Hateful that Tujue state preceptor attacked Yanhuang College. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come all the way from the northern part of the Tang Empire to Chang'an. Hateful." Li Zishuan was speechless. Using heavenly thunder to ignite fireworks, gunpowder, sulfur, and charcoal. If he hadn't happened to encounter such a thing, no one in the entire Chang and city would have been able to see through this plot. In other words, although Wu Jia had attacked the Yanhuang Academy, he had unknowingly helped the Tang imperial court. This was truly a case of fortune and misfortune depending on one's misfortune. Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, and Sun Fujia couldn't help but open their mouths. At this moment, their hearts were filled with joy. Of course, it wasn't because Yanhuang College was attacked by Wu Jia, but because Li Zishuan returned before the dragon sex plot. Otherwise, even if Chang and city wasn't captured, the imperial court would have suffered heavy losses. Of course, the three of them were convinced by the second half of Du Yi's words. Even the arrogant Dai Zhou had to admit that if he was the one investigating the case, he definitely wouldn't be able to see through the dragon sex conspiracy in Chang and city in a single day. Although this poor monk knows that he doesn't have the qualifications to talk terms with Marquis, this poor monk still wants to beg Marquis to let this poor monk live. Although Marquis has seen through the series of conspiracies deployed by the dragon sect inside and outside Chang and city, I'm sure Marquis doesn't know about the other matters of the sect. "I'm willing to tell you the truth." After a moment of silence, Du Yi looked up at Li Zishuan and said sincerely. His tone was no longer as firm as before. His previous words more or less carried a threat, but now, it was more of a plea. The initiative of the conversation was already in Li Zishuan's hands. Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, and Sun Fujia were all experienced interrogators. How could they not see the change in the situation? The three of them couldn't help but give Li Zishuan a big thumbs up in their hearts. Li Zishuan said indifferently, "If you don't speak, you will die now. If you speak, this marquis may give you a chance to live on account of your sincerity. The choice is up to you. Anyway, the other matters of the dragon sect are not important to the overall situation. Even if you don't speak, after the dragon sect is annihilated tomorrow, this marquis can let the others speak. Secure in his backing, Li Zishuan put on a fearless look, further grasping the initiative of the conversation and once again breaking down the line of defense in Du Yi's heart. Du Yi's face was pale. He gritted his teeth and said, "Fine. This poor monk will say everything. I hope that Marquis Yong and can let this poor monk live on account of this poor monk's honest confession. This poor monk will immediately return to India and never take a step into Great Tang." This fellow's every sentence was survival. His desire to live was simply overflowing. "You speak first." Li Zishuan secretly heaved a sigh of relief, then turned around and sat beside Sun Fujia. Sun Fujia was already holding a pen, ready to record the contents of Du Yi's confession. Because they were worried that the secret would be leaked, there were only Li Zishuan, Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, Sun Fujia, and Du Yi in this torture room. There were no bailiffs, jailers, or clerks to record the contents of the interrogation. Therefore, Sun Fujia, the Shaoqing of the Supreme Court, could only work as a clerk. "Your Majesty, Marquis Yong, and requests an audience." At around 9:00 in the evening, the Sweet Dew Hall was still brightly lit. Zhao Song walked in quietly and reported to Li Er, who was sitting on the seat of honor with his chin resting on his hand. Is there news from the Supreme Court? Let him in." Li Er's eyes lit up and immediately recovered from his thoughts. He quickly straightened his body and ordered. "Yes." Zhao Song received the order and left. After a while, Li Zishuan walked in from outside the hall. He cupped his hands and said to Li Er, "Your subject Li Zishuan pays his respects to your majesty." The Supreme Court was in the outer palace and was only separated from the inner palace by a city wall. At this time, the city gate between the inner and outer palace was naturally sealed. However, the situation was urgent now. Furthermore, Li Zishuan still had the golden token bestowed by Li Er. Naturally, he could openly pass through the gate of heaven influence and enter the Sweet Dew Hall of Taiji Palace. "Rise." Li Er waved his hand and quickly asked, "How was the interrogation? Did Du Yi confess truthfully?" Chapter 1602. Gold medal? What gold medal? Inside the Sweet Nectar Hall, Li Zishuan's narration revealed the dragon sect's rapid development and meticulous planning in the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing the local officials, recruiting the shopkeeper of Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the Imperial Ancestral Temple, all of these plots were shocking. Li Er grasped a very crucial point. His tiger eyes narrowed as he asked in a deep voice. "Your Majesty, this is the gold medal found on Du Yi's body." Li Zishuan was silent for a moment and took out a gold medal from his waist. The gold medal looked very light, but Li Zishuan held it especially heavy because he knew that this gold medal was related to the lives of many people. Without waiting for Li Er's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to receive the gold medal and presented it. Li Er held the gold medallion with one hand and placed it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank as he saw the words, "East Palace," written on the gold medallion. Beside it was a small line of words, "Wuda Yuan Year System." In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Sui Yang Emperor Yang Guang in Jianghu. Not long after, Sui Gong Emperor Yang Yu gave up the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. Since then, Li Jianxing had officially become the first master of the Great Tang Eastern Palace. This was an Eastern Palace gold medallion from the first year of Wuda. The hidden meaning behind this was something that anyone with a bit of knowledge could understand. It was precisely because this case involved King Shi Li Jianxing that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zishuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow morning for the dragon sect to attack the city. According to Du Yi, the dragon sect has a total of 3 of these gold medals. They are respectively kept by the dragon head, the judge, and him. Li Er's face was as calm as water. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and added, "Who is the dragon head of the dragon sect?" After a long while, Li Zishuan put down the command token. His eyes emitted a cold light as he suddenly looked at Li Zishuan and asked in a deep voice. Li Zishuan cupped his fists and replying to your majesty, Daoist said that he didn't know the name of their dragon head, nor his identity. This was because the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon's sect had never shown his true face to anyone. The people of Heavenly Dragon's sect only addressed him as Dragon Head, but no one knew his name or his origin. Li Er was slightly disappointed when he heard this. His gaze gradually turned cold. He paused and said, no matter what, the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon's sect must be related to King Shi. Investigate. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, this subject obeys your majesty. The hall fell into silence. Although Li Zishuan and Li Jianxing were brothers, for the sake of the throne, these two brothers fought to the death. In today's Tang Empire, the name Li Jianxing had long become a taboo. No one dared to mention this name in front of Li Zishuan. Now, because of a gold medallion from the Eastern Palace, the name of King Shi Li Jianxing once again appeared in the Imperial Palace. However, for the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect, it was not a good thing. Replying to your majesty, this time Daoist sneaked into Chang and city with this gold medallion. He visited the main officials of King Shi's faction in Chang and city. Among them were 24 officials, 6 generals in the army, and 7 eunuchs in the Imperial Palace. This subject has a list of names here. Your Majesty, please take a look. The hall was silent for a while. Li Zishuan took out a piece of paper full of words from his sleeve and handed it to Zhao Song. This light piece of paper carried the future of dozens of people. It could not be said that it was not heavy. Li Zishuan took the paper and placed it on the dragon table. Then, he narrowed his eyes and looked carefully. Gold medallion? What gold medallion? In the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Zishuan explained the rapid development and careful planning of the Heavenly Dragon sect over the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing local officials, taking in the shopkeeper of the Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the Imperial Ancestral Temple, all of these plots were shocking. Li Zishuan grasped a very important point. His eyes focused as he asked in a low voice. Your Majesty, this is the gold medallion found on Du Yi's body. After a moment of silence, Li Zishuan took out a gold medallion from his waist. The gold medallion seemed very light, but it was especially heavy in Li Zishuan's hands. This was because he knew that this gold medallion concerned the lives of many people. Without needing Li Zishuan's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to take the gold medallion and presented it. Li Zishuan held the gold medallion with one hand and looked at it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank. On the gold medallion were the words Eastern Palace, and beside it was a small line of words Wuda Yuan Year System. In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Sui Yang Emperor Yang Guang in Jianghu. Not long after, Sui Gong Emperor Yang Yu abdicated the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. From then on, Li Jianxing officially became the first master of the Great Tang Eastern Palace. A gold medallion from the first year of Wuda from the Eastern Palace. The hidden meaning behind this could be understood by anyone with a bit of knowledge. It was precisely because this case involved King Shi Li Jianxing that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zishuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow morning when the Heavenly Dragon sect attacked the city. According to Du Yi, the Heavenly Dragon sect has a total of 3 such gold medallions. They are respectively kept by the Dragon Head, the Judge, and him. Li Zishuan's face was gloomy. Below the court, Li Zishuan cupped his hands and added. Who is the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect? After a long while, Li Zishuan put down the gold medallion. His eyes emitted a cold light as he suddenly looked at Li Zishuan and asked in a deep voice. In the past, I followed the imperial army to the north to fight against the Turks. I didn't expect that I would become a rebel army that is about to attack Jianghu city. What? Big brother Meng, you used to be a government soldier? What's wrong? Doesn't seem like it. I'm not bragging. Back in the Yunzhou region, I killed more Turks than I can count with one hand. But Big brother Meng, since you used to be a government soldier of the Great Tang, why now? Why did you join the dragon sect and rebel against the imperial court? Big brother Meng, don't misunderstand. I didn't mean anything else. Hey. A rebel army is a rebel army. There's no point in quibbling. I didn't want to betray the imperial court, nor did I want to be a rebel. But sometimes, I can't do whatever I want. I'm from Qingzhou. Last summer, there was a famine in Qingzhou. Although the provincial government had allocated some food, many people still starved to death. In order to survive, I went to the city to move goods. My daily salary was only enough to buy a caddy of rice. One day, when I returned home, I found that the entire village had been ransacked by the bandits nearby. The remaining 5 caddies of rice at home were also taken away by the bandits. In order to protect the rice at home, my mother was severely injured by the bandits. I wanted to bring my mother to the city for treatment the next day, but the next morning, a group of people came to the village. Not only did they give the villagers porridge, but they also treated the people who had been injured by the bandits the day before. At that time, my mother's injuries were very serious and several of her bones were broken. Originally, I didn't expect those people to be able to heal my mother. Who knew that a monk in that group not only quickly reconnected my mother's bones, he also gave my mother a bowl of Jade Lake holy water. After my mother drank it, her body immediately stopped hurting. She kept saying that the monk was the reincarnation of a Buddha. Later on, the dragon sect started recruiting disciples in Qingzhou. In order to repay their kindness, I joined the dragon sect. In addition, although my mother's previous injuries were treated, she had to drink the Jade Lake holy water once every 5 days. Otherwise, her body would hurt terribly again. In order to obtain the Jade Lake holy water, I trained hard in the dragon sect. Coupled with my previous experience on the battlefield, I was quickly assigned to the Earth Emanations camp. After that, I met you. I didn't expect Big Brother Meng to have such an experience. To tell you the truth, the majority of the people in the Heavenly Dragon Army have received favors from the Dragon Head or the Venerable One. Thus, even though we know that the Dragon Head is going to attack Jianghu city tomorrow and completely fall out with the Imperial Court, none of us cowered. Haha. All right. It's getting late. Chapter 1605. Why hasn't Jianghu city opened its gates today? Yes. I hunted a pheasant yesterday and was planning to sell it in Jianghu city today. But who knew that the gates of Jianghu city were still closed? What should we do? If we wait until tomorrow, it will probably stink. My San Lang went into the city to sell eggs yesterday and hasn't come back yet. When will the gates of Jianghu city open? Early in the morning, the 4 gates of Jianghu city were surrounded by many people who wanted to leave or enter the city. Seeing that the gates were still closed, the people could not help but discuss. Most of the people inside the gates entered the city yesterday morning, but the gates were suddenly closed. They could not leave the city in time and could only stay in the city for the night. Most of the people outside the city were the relatives of these people. Because they were worried about them, they came to Jianghu city early in the morning to take a look. Marquis. According to the report of the spies, the rebel army of the Dragon sect has left Snake Spirit Mountain and is heading towards Jianghu city. There are about 50,000 people. They will reach Jianghu city in about an hour. Li Zishuan woke up exceptionally early today. After breakfast, he went to the camp of the Right Guards. At this time, Lu Rengui hurriedly trotted over and bowed to Li Zishuan with cupped fists. More than 50,000 people? Hearing this, Li Zixuan's eyes flashed and then whispered softly, "It seems that Du Yi is telling the truth." In last night's interrogation, Du Yi not only told Li Zixuan about the development of the dragon sect in the past year, he also told him about the military strength of the dragon sect. So when he heard Lu Rengui say that the dragon sect's army had more than 50,000 people, Li Zixuan remembered Du Yi's confession last night. He thought to himself that since this monk's attitude was so sincere, should he let him live? Shaking his head, Li Zixuan threw away the messy thoughts in his mind. He looked at Lu Rengui and asked solemnly, "Have the guards been arranged for the 4 city gates?" Lu Rengui replied with cupped fists, "It is said that His Majesty issued a secret order early this morning, ordering Duke Wei to lead the left and right guards, left and right guards, left and right guards, and left and right guards to guard the 9 city gates in the east, west, and north of Chang and city. Now, the guards of the 9 city gates have been replaced by the men arranged by Duke Wei. When the rebel army arrives, Duke Wei will lead the army to stop the rebels from attacking the city from the east, west, and north." Li Zixuan frowned. "Who will guard the south gate?" To be honest, the dragon sect would most likely attack from the south of Chang and city, but Li Zixuan didn't arrange for the 3 city gates in the south. This made Li Zixuan puzzled. Lu Rengui's face turned serious. He cupped his fists and said, "Marquis, before you came, Supervisor Zhao came to pass on His Majesty's verbal order. Today, the defense of Chang and city's south gate will be guarded by the left and right guards, and will be commanded by you, Marquis." "Let this Marquis command?" Li Zixuan's eyes widened. Even though he had just fought with the Tujue state preceptor in the north, that was only because of his own bravery. To have him command an army in battle, especially a battle to defend a city, to him, this was the first time he had ever done it. "Yes, Marquis." Lu Rengui nodded his head with certainty. Li Zixuan opened his mouth with a helpless expression. But now that things had come to this, he could only accept his fate. Lu Rengui suddenly thought of something and continued, "That's right, Marquis. This morning, His Majesty also decreed that today's morning court assembly is temporarily cancelled due to his ill health. You don't have to rush to the palace to attend the morning court assembly." "There's such a thing?" Li Zixuan was stunned at first, then he suddenly realized, His Majesty is wise. This move can let those officials who colluded with the dragon sect lower their guard and help the dragon sect army outside the city. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for these people to give themselves away. If Li Er had ordered Li Jing to lead the 6 guards to the various city towers early in the morning, it would create a sense of urgency that Chang and city was about to be attacked by the enemy. In this way, those officials in King Shi's faction would definitely suspect that Li Er had already known that Dragon Sect was about to attack the city. In addition, if Li Er did not cancel the morning court assembly today, there would definitely be officials in the morning court who would ask him to give the order to lift the blockade of Chang and city. At that time, he would be in a dilemma. So when Li Jing led the army to secretly take over the city defense, Li Er came to cancel the morning court assembly by claiming to be ill. Not only did this avoid the suspicions of some officials, it also gave those people a chance to collude with the dragon sect outside the city. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Tell the hidden sentries to be alert, don't let anyone discover them. Once there's a situation, there's no need to report it, just arrest them directly. Li Zixuan's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Lu Rengui and said in a deep voice. Since old Li Zixuan attached so much importance to those officials who might rebel, then he, Li Zixuan, had no reason to not attach importance to them. Yes. Marquis. Lu Rengui cupped his fists and was about to turn and leave when Li Zixuan called out to him, "Hey! Wait!" Lu Rengui quickly stopped in his tracks, only to hear Li Zixuan ask again, "Are there many citizens outside the city gates waiting to leave or enter?" Lu Rengui was stunned for a moment before nodding, "That's right. This general went to the south gate an hour ago to patrol and saw many citizens surrounding the city gates." Li Zixuan pursed his lips and pondered for a moment before saying, "How about this? Send people to the city gates to disperse the citizens and tell them that the city gates will only open today. Tell them to return to their homes and don't waste any time at the city gates. Remember, no matter what method you use, you must drive the citizens back to their homes. But there is one rule, you must not harm the citizens. Once the 50,000 dragon sect troops arrive at Cheng and city, it would be too late for the commoners at the city gates to escape. Moreover, they would most likely be captured by the dragon sect to be used as meat shields. Li Zishuan knew that many people would be injured or even killed in this battle, but he wanted to do everything within his power to minimize unnecessary casualties. So what if he lied and deceived people? Open the city gates at midnight? Marquis, what if we fail to destroy Heavenly Dragon sect before the end of the day? Although Lu Rengui understood Li Zishuan's intention, he was still worried. Li Zishuan said decisively, there are no ifs. Do as I say. Before the dragon sect troops arrive at Cheng and city, evacuate the citizens outside the city gates as soon as possible, there must be no mistakes. Lu Rengui hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed, this general obeys. Seeing that Li Zishuan had no other orders, Lu Rengui turned and left. Marquis, head steward Zhao is here. As soon as Lu Rengui left, a soldier walked in and cupped his fists to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan's eyes lit up, quick. Invite him in. Chapter 1606. Master, the Dragon Sect's army has arrived outside Cheng and city. The South City Gate is under martial law. The Marquis of Yong and is personally leading the left and right guards to resist the Dragon Sect's army. Chonghua Square, west of Cheng and city. An old servant came to the study and bowed to a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes. The middle-aged man was slightly stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but clench his fists behind his back. After a short pause, he turned to look at the old servant and sighed. What will come will come. This day has finally come. The old servant hesitated for a moment and couldn't help but ask, Master, do you really plan to? Although he didn't finish his words, the middle-aged man knew what he wanted to express. Sigh. How could this old man not want to spend the rest of his life in peace? But the Crown Prince was a great benefactor to this old man. On the surface, we were monarch and subject, but in secret, we were best friends. This kindness is unforgettable even in death. In front of the Black Tortoise Gate, this old man had no power and could only watch as the Crown Prince was shot to death. Now that his descendants have sent people to find me, how can this old man stand by and watch? If this is really the case, how can this old man face the Crown Prince in the underworld after 100 years? After a long silence, the middle-aged man painfully closed his eyes and muttered to himself. When the old servant heard this, he couldn't help but fall silent. When he saw the middle-aged man raise his foot and intend to leave, he was still slightly unwilling and said, Master, what if the Dragon Sect's army is defeated, you take Madam and young Master out of the city and escape? Without waiting for the old servant to finish, the middle-aged man waved his hand and said. With that, he didn't stay any longer. He went directly to the door and pushed it open. Master. You can't go out. The middle-aged man came out of the study and into the courtyard. Just as he was about to leave, a woman suddenly came out of the side courtyard and blocked his path. His Majesty ordered this old man to enter the palace to discuss matters. Madam, what are you doing? The middle-aged man's expression changed, but he quickly returned to normal. He frowned and asked in a deep voice. Who knew that the woman wouldn't listen to a single word? She said anxiously, Master, don't try to deceive me. I heard everything you said to the Heavenly Dragon Sect's Venerable. Master, normally, this concubine doesn't understand the important matters of those countries and doesn't dare to interrupt. But this time, this concubine has to advise Master. Master, King Shi is dead. No matter how good King Shi was to you back then, he's already dead. Do you really want to disregard the safety of our family for that groundless descendant of King Shi? Are you really willing to do that? General Luo, this general is willing to escort the dragon head away. At some point, Li Junxian had walked over, clasped his fist, and bowed. Li Junxian had not been standing very far from General Luo, so he had heard most of their conversation. The iron-masked man had finally separated from General Luo, so how could he not seize this chance? Thus, without any hesitation, he stepped forward and volunteered. General Luo immediately turned to Li Junxian and frowned. You? If I remember correctly, you have only joined the Heavenly Dragon Army for less than a month, right? How can you bear such a great responsibility? Li Junxian hadn't expected this man surnamed Luo to remember a minor character of the Heavenly Dragon sect. His mind turning, he hastily replied. His mind raced, and he hastily said, General Luo, although this subordinate has not been a member of the Dragon sect for long, this subordinate is absolutely loyal to the Dragon Head and the Dragon sect. Venerable Du Yi was coerced by the imperial court into maliciously slandering the Dragon sect in public. Others might believe it, but this subordinate will not. This subordinate's loyalty to the Dragon sect and the Dragon Head has never changed. Now that the Dragon Head is in danger, this subordinate will do everything in my power to escort the Dragon Head safely out of Chang'an. General Luo, please be at ease. Good. 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 Li Junxian, this god did not misjudge you. The Dragon Head looked at Li Junxian in praise. Li Junxian had been able to enter the Heavenly Dragon Army primarily because he had received the Dragon Head's favor. Now that the Heavenly Dragon sect was in danger, Li Junxian had remained unwavering in his loyalty. The steel-masked man naturally had nothing but praise for Li Junxian. Thus, he turned to General Luo and said, General Luo, this god trusts in Li Junxian's loyalty. Rest assured and let Li Junxian lead a group of men to escort this god out. But. No buts. General Luo, you only need to delay the Imperial Court's army for a few moments, and then immediately join up with this god. No matter what, you must live. At this point, the current situation did not allow them to hesitate too much. The iron-masked man instantly made a decision, but before he left, he still looked at General Luo with a solemn expression and said, Don't worry. Okay. General Luo's eyes flashed with emotion, and then he solemnly returned the bow. Milord, take care. This general will definitely return alive. After saying this, he bellowed, Pan Feng, Zhao Ming, the two of you take 2,000 elites and accompany Li Junxian to escort the Dragon Head out of Chang'an. If anything goes wrong, I will chop off your heads. As soon as he finished speaking, two valiant generals immediately stepped forward, cupped their fists, and said, Yes, sir. Haha. A trifling Heavenly Dragon sect dares to run rampant in Chang'an? Today, this old Qing will teach you how to behave. At this moment, the sound of hooves approached from the south, followed by the loud laughter of Qing Yaojin. General Luo grimaced and sternly ordered his subordinates, Hurry and escort the Dragon Head out. Yes. Immediately, the two groups of elite soldiers brought the Heavenly Dragon sect's Dragon Head and left towards the east. General Luo gripped his sword and loudly shouted, Soldiers, hear my order. Follow this general to meet the enemy. Yes. The Sky Dragon Army was indeed a well-trained army. The moment General Luo gave the order, more than 10,000 people responded in unison. Then, they pulled out their swords and got into formation. Under General Luo's lead, they charged towards the 10,000 light cavalry led by Qing Yaojin, Qin Xiong, and Yuqi Jingda. Ha! How dare you! Let this old Qing meet you. Qing Yaojin saw that the rebel army's general actually took the initiative to meet them, and he couldn't help but shout excitedly. He held his lance and charged forward. 10,000 against 18,000, but this old man didn't seem to have the slightest awareness that he was outnumbered. It was as if he had the absolute advantage, and he charged forward without any regard for his life. Seeing this, Qin Xiong panicked, but it was clearly impossible to stop Qing Yaojin at this time. He turned his head to Yuqi Jingda and urgently said, Jingda, Heavenly Dragon Cult just sent out a group of people to the east. There's likely to be Heavenly Dragon Cult's Dragon Head there. You lead a group to pursue, I'll go help Jijia. At the end of the day, Qin Xiong was still a little worried about Qing Yaojin. However, he couldn't not send people to chase after the other group of people from Heavenly Dragon sect. After thinking about it, he could only make this arrangement. Yu Qigong also knew that the situation was urgent. Without hesitation, he wiped the rain off his face and replied, "All right. Then I'll lead 1,000 light cavalry to chase after the Heavenly Dragon sect survivors. Shu Bao, you and Jijie must be careful. And you don't have to worry about this side." Qin Xiong nodded. "Wu Duchuan, count 1,000 men and follow this general." With that, Yu Qijingda called out to his men, and the 1,000 light cavalry immediately turned and galloped in the direction of the Heavenly Dragon sect's dragon head. "All generals listen to my order. Follow this general to kill. Don't let a single one escape." Qin Xiong held a golden mace and urged his horse to lead the remaining 1,000 light cavalry to support Qing Yaojin. At this moment, Qing Yaojin and General Luo were already fighting. The two of them tested each other's strength and found that they were evenly matched. At this time, Qing Yaojin's lance smashed into General Luo's sword, but the latter's majestic Shinshi directly shook him away. Qing Yaojin stabilized himself and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. "Hey! Junior, you have such good kung fu. Who are you? Who is your teacher?" It was no wonder that old Sheng was surprised. The young general in front of him was no more than 20 years old, but his martial arts had reached the Grandmaster realm. Other than Li Zishuan, this was probably the youngest Grandmaster realm martial artist in the entire Tang dynasty. What surprised Qing Yaojin even more was that not only was this young general's realm high, his swordsmanship was also quite fierce. Yes, fierce, bold, simple, and efficient. It had the style of the army's swordsmanship. "I'm just a nobody, there's no need for Duke Lu to worry about me." A trace of hatred flashed in General Luo's eyes. He said coldly and directly raised his sword to slash at Qing Yaojin. "Hey! I, old Sheng, saw that you were a promising talent and wanted to persuade you to submit to the imperial court, but you really don't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, I, old Sheng, will teach you how to respect your elders." When Qing Yaojin saw that this young general's martial arts were outstanding, he was very fond of him. However, the other party did not appreciate his kindness at all. Qing Yaojin could not help but be furious. Not everyone had the qualifications to be treated coldly by him. After saying that, Qing Yaojin waved his lance and swung it at General Luo. "Jijia! This old man will help you." At this moment, Qin Xiong came over on his horse, wanting to join forces with Qing Yaojin to fight against General Luo. Qing Yaojin's stubborn temper had already risen. When he heard Qin Xiong's voice, he loudly said, "Second brother, I don't need your help. Let me, old Qing, deal with him alone." As they spoke, the two of them had already clashed. Hearing this, Qin Xiong hurriedly reined in his horse, but he felt helpless. He knew that if he rashly joined the battle at this time, old Qing wouldn't really be angry at him, but he would definitely feel very uncomfortable. So at this moment, he could only deal with the surrounding dragon sect soldiers while paying attention to the battle. If Qing Yaojin's situation changed, he would be the first to go to his rescue. Chapter 1609. Qing Yaojin and General Luo were fighting fiercely, but in front of them, Li Zishuan's Wu Wei army and the 30,000 Heavenly Dragon sect disciples were fighting a one-sided battle. These 30,000 people were just ordinary people. They had not received any formal training after joining the Heavenly Dragon sect. When they met the well-equipped and well-trained elite soldiers, the 30,000 people instantly showed signs of defeat. Of course, their lack of combat strength was one of the reasons. However, the more important reason was that after listening to Du Yi expose the Heavenly Dragon sect's deception and conspiracy, most of the people no longer had any thoughts of resisting. When the two sides clashed, countless people dropped their weapons and directly knelt on the ground to surrender. The elites of the Heavenly Dragon sect, who were supervising the battle among the commoners, saw that there were people who dared to surrender without a fight. They went forward to teach them a lesson and wanted to make an example out of them. However, their actions aroused public anger. After all, there were only a few hundred of them. The 30,000 commoners turned around and attacked the elites of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Not long after, the Heavenly Dragon sect elites who were supervising the battle were all beaten to the ground. Some were dead, some were seriously injured, and there was not even a light injury. Those who abandon the dark and join the light will be punished lightly. Those who resist will be killed without mercy. The Heavenly Dragon sect elites' shouts could be heard everywhere on the battlefield. Under the deterrence of absolute force, the 30,000 disheartened Heavenly Dragon sect members dropped their weapons one by one and knelt on the ground to surrender. Soon, a large number of people on the battlefield were kneeling. Not far away, General Luo, who was fighting with Qing Yaojin, could not help but feel anxious when he saw this scene. However, it was useless to be anxious. Although Qing Yaojin's martial realm was on par with his, in terms of battle experience, Qing Yaojin was undoubtedly far ahead of him. At this time, there was no way for him to quickly end the battle, let alone leave. Therefore, he could only watch as Li Zishuan absorbed the 30,000 Heavenly Dragon sect members. Your Majesty, please slow down. Outside Chang'an City, the three sides were fighting fiercely. Inside Chang'an City, there was a group of people who happened to be near the city walls. The leader was Li Er. Behind him were all the civil and military officials of the imperial court. Earlier, when the Heavenly Dragon sect had surrounded Chang'an City, the civil and military officials of Chang'an City had all gone to the imperial palace to request Li Er, who was ill, to immediately convene the morning court. Chapter 1610. Big Brother Meng, I'm sorry. My name is not Li Junxian. I am the Marshal of the Great Tang's 100 Cavalry Department, Li Junxian. In the eastern part of Chang'an, Li Junxian was holding the dragon head by the shoulder and holding his sword to his neck. Upon hearing Meng Wuchang's question, he turned around and apologetically said, I'm sorry. Marshal of the 100 Cavalry Department, Li Junxian. Meng Wuchang was dumbfounded. The dragon head was also dumbfounded. The surrounding celestial dragon army soldiers were also dumbfounded. None of them had imagined that the Marshal of the 100 Cavalry Department would infiltrate the celestial dragon sect and become a member of the Earth Emanations Battalion. This was simply too absurd. Bastard. To think that this god valued you so highly. You're actually a spy sent by the imperial court. Someone. Hurry and kill this brat. The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect was so angry that he trembled all over and roared. Li Junxian's face chilled as he pressed his sword to the dragon head's neck and shouted, None of you are allowed to come over. If anyone dares to take a single step forward, your dragon head will die. The restless soldiers of the celestial dragon army calmed down once more. The soldiers of the imperial court that had been besieging the dragon head used this chance to surround Li Junxian and the dragon head. Yuqi Jingda looked over in delight. Oh. So it was Marshal Li? Why are you in the celestial dragon sect? Oh, this old man remembers now. You haven't appeared in Chang'an for quite some time. Presumably, His Majesty sent you to infiltrate the celestial dragon sect, right? Haha. His Majesty is truly wise, otherwise, the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect might have escaped today. Kill. Hurry and kill Li Junxian. Li Junxian was just about to speak with Yuqi Jingda when the dragon head in his hand began to madly shout, All generals, hear my order. Kill Li Junxian. Don't be threatened by him. We're now in the hands of the imperial court, and we're all dead. Hurry and kill Li Junxian. The dragon head finally understood. Since Li Er had sent Li Junxian to infiltrate the celestial dragon sect as a spy, there was a high chance that Li Junxian had been the one who had leaked out the celestial dragon sect's plans. Otherwise, how could his flawless plans have been foiled by the imperial court? Hate. The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect felt endless hatred for Li Junxian. If not for Li Junxian, Chang'an might have fallen into internal strife, and he might have led the celestial dragon army into Chang'an. Thus, the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect only wanted to kill Li Junxian. He couldn't care less about anything else. Everyone stop. Don't listen to his nonsense. Li Junxian took the dragon head and retreated a few steps until he was at a safe distance. He then turned to the less than 1,000 soldiers of the Heavenly Dragon Army and Meng Wuchang. Big Brother Meng, and my brothers of the Celestial Dragon Army, I, Li Junxian, know that the vast majority of you have received the grace of the dragon sect, so you are willing to die for your dragon head. But have you ever wondered if your dragon head harbored ill intentions when he granted you this grace? You all heard what Daoist said on the walls. Not only does the dragon sect not have any reincarnated gods, the Jade Lake sacred water you gave your family members is not a cure for all illnesses, as the rumors say. Drinking too much of the Jade Lake sacred water will even cause one to become dependent on it and gradually eat away at one's body. The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect clearly knew that the Jade Lake sacred water could not cure all illnesses and was even harmful to the body, so why did he give it to you? This means that from the moment he granted you this grace, he wanted to use you. You were just pawns in his plot to usurp the throne, so why continue to resist? There are many ways to repay favors in this world, and this sort of favor is not worth your life. I've already captured the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect, and the rest of the Heavenly Dragon sect has been wiped out by the Imperial Court. Rather than serving this dragon head, it would be better for you to lay down your weapons and join the light. Perhaps His Majesty will spare you. Even if you don't think about yourselves, you should think about your families. They might still be waiting for you to return. Li Junxian's words caused these loyal soldiers of the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect to waver. The word family was perhaps the softest part of their hearts. He. Family? Meng Wuchang stood in a daze, his heart filled with bitterness. After a long while, he couldn't help but burst into tears. I, Meng Wuchang, have let down my fellow villagers and family. Now that I've become a rebel of the Heavenly Dragon sect, how can I face my elders and family? After saying this, he raised the Mo saber in his hand and slashed at his own neck. Big Brother Meng. Li Junxian panicked and wanted to go over and cut him, but he couldn't free himself, so he could only watch as Meng Wuchang killed himself. Clang! Just when the Mo saber was about to cut Meng Wuchang's neck, a lance howled through the air and struck the hilt of the saber in Meng Wuchang's right hand. With a metallic clang, the saber in Meng Wuchang's hand clattered to the ground. Chapter 1611. Lu Guogong, stop. This person is. The Sky Dragon Legion's main general had committed suicide, and the rest of the soldiers had lost their leader. They were in a mess, but they were quickly subdued by the left and right guards, as well as the 10,000 elite cavalry that Qin Xiong had brought back. Just then, there was a hurried shout from outside the crowd. An official in purple rushed in, but before he could finish his sentence, he saw General Luo lying on the ground with his neck dyed red. His voice stopped abruptly. The person he was looking for was obviously dead. This. Lu Guogong, you killed him? The purple-robed official looked at General Luo on the ground, then looked at Xing Yaojin and asked in disbelief. Zhao Guogong, this has nothing to do with me. That's right, this purple-robed official was Zhang Sun Wuji. Previously, when Zhang Sun Wuji saw the appearance of this young general, he quickly excused himself from Li Air and quickly ran down the city gate tower. Hearing the reproach in Zhang Sun Wuji's words, Xing Yaojin rubbed his nose and quickly waved his hand. This old man originally wanted to capture him alive and hand him over to His Majesty to deal with him personally. However, this junior was bent on seeking death and ran into this old Cheng's lance. This old man was caught off guard, so this junior committed suicide. Sigh. What a pity. Although Qing Yaojin was dissatisfied with the young general's arrogant attitude, he had to admit that this young general was a promising talent. He had reached the Grandmaster realm at such a young age. Although his future achievements couldn't be compared to Li Zishuan, he definitely wouldn't be too bad. It was indeed a pity for such a young talent to die just like that. After a moment of frustration, Qing Yaojin suddenly came back to his senses. He looked at Zhang Sun Wuji and asked curiously, Zhao Guogong, why are you so concerned about this young man? Could it be that you know him? At this moment, Qing Yaojin realized that something was wrong. If the young general on the ground was really Zhang Sun Wuji's relative, then he had completely offended Zhang Sun Wuji. Although Qing Yaojin wasn't afraid of Zhang Sun Wuji, being watched by an old fox every day was quite uncomfortable. You. Zhang Sun Wuji pointed at Qing Yaojin and sighed, "Ai. Wasn't this young General Luo Yi's son, Luo Cheng? Forget it. Let's bring the Heavenly Dragon sect rebels back to the city first. We'll talk about this later." Luo Cheng? When Li Zishuan heard this, he couldn't help but feel shocked. In his previous life, he had read The Legend of the Heroes of Sui and Tang dynasties a few times. Naturally, he knew about Luo Cheng. However, he didn't expect that such a young hero would become a rebel and end up like this. It seemed that because of his appearance, a lot of history had quietly changed. Actually, there was no such person as Luo Cheng in the official history.